Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, January 13, 2026 regular business meeting of the Olympia City Council. For the record, we have a quorum with all council members present tonight. So with that, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of the agenda as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. So our first item tonight is special recognition, a proclamation recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we will begin with a shared reading of the proclamation, beginning with Councilmember Madrone.
Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated his life to the nonviolent crusade for human rights for all people and advanced the values of equality, justice, and opportunity for all. And
whereas Dr. King's words and vision resonate today as they did in his lifetime, and incumbent upon us to carry forward his principles of peace, equality, and service, and
whereas, as the forces of hate and oppression rise up in the world, Dr. King reminds us that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And
whereas in his struggle for human rights, Dr. King was committed to economic justice as well as social justice, and in his 1964 Nobel Peace Prize address, Dr. King called out poverty as an evil which plagues the modern world. And
whereas Dr. King encouraged us to act with compassion, saying, as you press on for justice, be sure to move with dignity and discipline, using only the weapon of love. And
whereas the federal government recognized Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day as a national holiday in law on November 2nd, 1983, and
now, therefore, be it resolved that the Olympia City Council does hereby proclaim Monday, January 19, 2026, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Olympia, and urges the community to pay tribute to the life and the works of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King through participation in acts of service to the community on this day and throughout the year. Signed in the city of Olympia, Washington, this 13th day of January 2026, Olympia City Council, Dante Payne, Mayor. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Barrett, for initiating getting us up on our feet. All right. So we have a list of guest speakers today. So I'm going to call forward right now. We have the Reverend David Reeves, who's the senior pastor at New Life Baptist Church, Dr. Thelma Jackson, the community engagement leader at New Life Baptist Church. And we also, I believe we have Stephanie Shalamandale here as well, who is a community design advocate for the Rebecca Howard Park. Dr. Jackson, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor Payne, members of the council. Thank you so very much for this proclamation that you are again awarding another year. You do so in a climate where people such as Dr. King, some hope would forget about. As we look at the 250th year anniversary of this country, and we look back all the way to 1619, over 150 years before this country was actually birthed, you had an awful lot of a presence of blacks. And then for Dr. King in the 50s and the 60s to lead the giant effort that led to the Civil Rights Act, that led to the Voting Rights Act, that led to public accessibility, that led to a focus on poverty and the indifference, injustice, and all those things have become such a part and such a fiber of America. So as we pause to celebrate his birthday this year, you as a council, I applaud you because you do so under a lot of pressure as a public body to eradicate all holidays that recognize people of color, other ethnicities, and other injustices in this country. But by way of this proclamation that you make tonight, you're saying no. Dr. King was not just a dreamer, he was also a doer. And you are doing, as a city council, the things that he articulated in his dream. So I applaud you for standing up against the odds, for being singled out as a community that's standing by its immigrants, that's standing by all of its people that are suffering injustice of any way, being denied liberties and freedoms. So this is more than just a proclamation for Dr. King. They are words that you read that stand for what you believe in as a city and as a city council. And for that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And today we gather to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, but honoring Dr. King requires more than remembering his words. It requires reckoning with this nation has refused to do since he spoke them. Dr. King did not dream in abstraction. He named injustice plainly, challenged systems directly, and he warned us clearly that time itself does not heal injustice without action. The issues Dr. King fought against have not been fully addressed, they have not been solved, and they have never been apologized for. In 1960, Dr. King confronted a nation that denied Black people the right to vote outright. Today, in 2026, we face a nation that has dismantled the Voting Rights Act, the very law meant to protect that hard-won freedom. The violence looks different now. It wears a suit instead of uniforms. It speaks in legal language instead of slurs. But the outcome is the same. Black political power is weakened, diluted, and erased. Dr. King believed democracy required protection. What we witness today is democracy being quietly undone. In Dr. King's time, Black children were excluded from classrooms by law. Today, Black children are excluded from their own history. Across this country, Black history is being removed from schools, not because it's untrue, not because it's inconvenient, not because it divides, but because it demands accountability. And at the same time, affirmative action, one of the few tools meant to interrupt centuries of exclusion, has been canceled. We are told this is fairness, but fairness without history is violence. Dr. King understood that education was a pathway to freedom. What does it mean when that pathway is deliberately narrowed? Dr. King also spoke powerfully about economic justice. He knew civil rights without economic security for Black people was fragile. In 1960, professions like government jobs, teaching, nursing, social work offered Black families a step into the middle class, a foothold in a hostile economy. Today, these same professions find that overrepresentation of Black workers have been devalued, underpaid, and dismissed. Degrees are questioned, credentials are undermined, labor is exploited. This is not coincidental. It is systemic dismantling of Black stability. Dr. King also named America's moral debt. He said this nation has written Black people a bad check. Mark insufficient funds. That check has still not been cashed. There are no national apologies for slavery, no comprehensive repair, no compensation for generations of stolen labor, stolen land, and stolen opportunity. And now we face a future where experts predict that in the current trend continues, that Black American will hold zero wealth in 2025. Zero. And at the same time, Black people are vastly overrepresented among the unhoused, sleeping in doorways, criminalized for poverty, discarded by systems designed to protect capital, not people. This is not a failure of individuals. This is a failure of a nation. Dr. King warned us about this moment. He warned us about materialism without morality, about progress without justice, about comfort chosen over courage. If Dr. King were alive today, he would not ask us to celebrate him. He would ask us to tell the truth. He would ask why the laws he marched for are being dismantled, why the history he bled for is being erased, why the debt he named remains unpaid. And he would remind us justice delayed is not passive, it is active harm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Are there any comments from the council? Well, I'll just say thank you so much for being here once again this year to accept this proclamation. Wow, moving words from both of you. So thank you so much for sharing them. I do just kind of want to point out something that really struck me, though, Stephanie, in your comments about demanding the reason that Black history is removed from our schools is because it demands accountability. And that's a pretty powerful statement, and it's true. I'm thinking about, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his, and as you were talking and thinking about accountability and how, the title, the Reverend, right, is a title of to demonstrate that he is somebody who is an active faith leader. And I think right now we're living in a time where we're seeing people's religion and their faith and their religious belief being used to weaponize and justify doing terrible things to people. And I would encourage us to look at the person of Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as somebody who is an example of a religious leader who calls us to do the exact opposite, who uses faith and community and frankly as a representative of God to do good and to see that in one another. And that word, again, accountability, it demands that of each of us, that we do that we see each other, that we are all, regardless of your beliefs or whatever God you believe in, there's divinity in each of us, and we should be seeing that in one another. And the fact that we are to be accountable to that is so critically important, especially now. And so I thank you for your powerful words. I have here 3 signed proclamations for you. We were expecting Pastor Reeves, but I'm sure we will see him at the Martin Luther King celebration that we have every year at New Life Baptist Church. Looking forward to joining you and speaking at that event. But for now, please come up and take a photo with the council, and I'll present you with the proclamations. If you want to join us for this photo, you are more than welcome.
We all set? All right. Let me take a couple. 1, 2, 3. And then another one. 1, 2, 3.
All right, let's give it up one more time for them for being here today. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move right on to our next item on our agenda, which is also a special recognition proclamation. It's item 2B on our agenda, and it is a proclamation recognizing National Day of Racial Healing. And we also have a shared reading beginning with Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the City of Olympia affirms that all people, regardless of their racial, ethnic, or religious identity, skin color, or physical traits, deserves equitable opportunity to thrive and participate fully in our democracy. And whereas the City of Olympia recognizes that achieving racial equality requires acknowledging and addressing the historic and present-day harms of racism and supporting efforts that build connection, trust, and belonging across our diverse community. And
whereas the National Day of Racial Healing, launched by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, invites communities across the nation to engage in truth-telling, relationship building, and collective action in support of the truth, racial healing, and transformation framework. And
whereas racial healing is a foundational step towards transforming systems that perpetuate inequity and toward creating a future in which all people, especially children, can grow, learn, and flourish in environments that honor their safety, dignity, and humanity. And whereas healing requires intentional effort from individuals, communities, and institutions, each of whom have the ability to make meaningful change that contributes to a more just and equitable society. And
whereas the City of Olympia understands that bridging divides, challenging false narratives about race, and fostering authentic relationships are essential to building a thriving community where everyone feels a sense of belonging. And
whereas the National Day of Racial Healing provides an opportunity for communities to gather, reflect, and engage in shared learning and dialogue that support progress toward racial equity and collective well-being. And
whereas the City of Olympia is pleased to partner with the South Sound YMCA and Olympia Timberland Library to host 2 community activities in honor of the National Day of Racial Healing, including a community art exhibit highlighting local expressions of healing and racial equity, and a community gathering for the purpose of fostering connections and deepening our collective understanding of racial healing through storytelling, presentations, and conversations. And
now, therefore, be it resolved that the Olympia City Council, joining communities across the United States of America, proclaims Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, as the National Day of Racial Healing in the City of Olympia, and encourages all residents to participate in activities that promote truth, racial healing, and transformation, both individually and collectively, as we work together to ensure that every child, family, and community member thrives and feels a sense of belonging now and in the generations that follow. Signed in the City of Olympia, Washington, this 13th day of January 2026, Olympia City Council, Dante Payne, Mayor. Thank you very much, Council. So we have a few speakers here as well. We have Victoria Harmon, who is the Regional Manager of the Olympia and West Olympia Timberland Regional Library. Talana Reed, the Vice President of NAACP of Thurston County. And Keisha Likely, who is the Executive Director of Community Engagement, South Sound YMCA. So if you wish to speak or share a few words, please make your way to the podium up here. Hello.
Hello. My name is Victoria Harmon, and I'm the Regional Library Manager for the Olympia and West Olympia Library. The Olympia Timberland Regional Library is excited to join this year's collaboration with the City of Olympia, YMCA, and NAACP for the National Day of Racial Healing. As part of our participation, we've recommended picture books for the mayor to read during the community conversation this Saturday, January 17th at the Olympia Center. We're also helping promote the Racial Healing Art Exhibit running from January 15th through February 28th. When you visit the Olympia and West Olympia Library, you'll find information and templates for art submissions in both the kids area and teen area. We'll collect submissions and deliver them to the city for display. Additionally, we have some book lists, bookmarks for all ages, and they'll be available at the community conversation event. And I also put a few on the table by the window. And we're proud to support this proclamation. It reflects our core values and principles, empowering patrons through learning opportunities, fostering inclusion as a vital step toward healing and justice, and sharing our story by engaging in meaningful conversations. Together, we can build common ground, create spaces for dialogue, and commit to listening, learning, and working toward a more just and equitable future.
I might need some water. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Talana Reed, First Vice President of the NAACP of Thurston County. We thank you for this invitation to be present for these very important proclamations. On behalf of our organization, I share these words. We're living in very serious times. Black and brown people are being labeled, targeted, and vilified by those in the highest positions of power. Somali, Hispanic, and other immigrant communities are being treated as threats rather than neighbors. Every day it feels as though we are being pushed backward towards the 1940s, 1950s, toward an America that many of us were not meant to survive. We are told this is the land of the free, yet too many of us are not free to live without fear. Fear of execution, of kidnapping, of state violence, or of having our cultures erased. Freedom should not feel like walking on broken glass. And the most dangerous part of this moment is not just the racism being perpetuated, it is the denial that racism exists at all in 2026. The Civil Rights Act protected us like a bandage that was supposed to cover the wounds of oppression and shield us from the violence of racial discrimination. It wasn't a dollar store bandage. It was a Band-Aid brand bandage, one that wouldn't be ripped away easily. But today, that bandage is being ripped off the faces of black and brown people, and we're bleeding out. And while our communities are bleeding, too many American institutions are standing by debating whether or not the wound exists. We appreciate these words proclaimed today. We support you. But words alone won't heal us. Healing requires more than a bandage. It requires intention and action, like aloe for the burn, like vitamin E for the scars, and steady hands willing to stop the bleeding, not just acknowledge the injury. The NAACP is here, and we will continue to show up because our commitment our communities cannot afford delay. We invite this council to walk alongside us and every member of this community beyond proclamation and into thoughtful, measurable action that reflects the values spoken today. Thank you for your commitment to racial healing and for the responsibility that commitment carries. Thank you all.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here from the South Sound YMCA on behalf of Kaisha Likely. She gave me the wonderful opportunity, she's back there, to do this. First, healing is a journey. We talk about the National Day of Racial Healing, and healing is a journey. It's not something that can happen overnight or something that just happens really fast, but it's something that takes a lot of work and process. I'm Zoe McCrae from the South Sound YMCA. I'm a program director for school-age childcare, and I'm originally from North Carolina, but I recently moved to Washington in 2022. I have 4 beautiful Black daughters, which are right over there, who are a part of the racial healing journey. Even though they are young, even though they are still small in elementary school, they are still a part of the racial healing journey. It's something that should start small, something that we should implement into our young children that can sort of kind of like grow up with them and mold them, because that's our future. So us pushing that in them, instilling this in them, will eventually shape our future into what we need it to be. Because racial healing, like I said, is a journey. So our journey doesn't just start with where we are now, but it starts there, and it's gonna help us to come up and to keep going further and further. Teaching them and the upcoming generations about the strong foundation that our ancestors set in the civil rights movement will help to further our healing journey as a society and to make sure that we keep the momentum and the work that we are doing present over time. Healing is spreading love, peace, and seeing all differences. Accepting everyone regardless of race, gender, religion, or any other biases. Accepting everyone for who they are and also teaching our children that as well. And thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Are there any comments from the dais? Councilmember Gilman.
I am so grateful that this city decided to honor both these proclamations tonight. That I think in the words we heard that words aren't enough, but we also know that words matter, and that our taking time in a meeting to talk about what kinds of action are required is very valuable, especially as Talana was just saying, there are really strong messages coming that we should not acknowledge this. So I'm really grateful to be here tonight and to be alongside you and to be sharing these proclamations.
Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen, followed by Councilmember Barrett.
Yeah, I sort of echo the same sentiments. We have so many community leaders here tonight, and from a lot of different organizations. And it's just so lovely to even be in a city that would honor something like National Day of Racial Hearing. That's kind of like, honestly, like kind of a pinch me moment. That's not every community. Not every community would do something like that. So it's really something. And the fact that there is teaming up with YMCA and then also the Timberland Regional Library to try to reach more people. And the 2 events we have, we make it family friendly. And so people from, I think, all walks of life can come and have something that they can join in. I think that's really lovely. I think there's so much symbolism that was happening with the last speaker. Zoe, you did such a wonderful job. And the fact that you said, you weren't like, I'm here because someone can't be here. I'm here because someone gave me the opportunity. And I also brought my 4 daughters that I'm raising. I mean, wow, right? I mean, that is, it is just such a beautiful thing to see. So thank you all so much for being here. We don't always have a packed council chambers. It's a big deal, and you're taking your time to spend a little bit with us and amplify these messages. You clearly spent a good amount of time figuring out exactly what you were going to say, and I think we had a number of powerful speeches tonight already, and we're just beginning. So thank you.
Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Hearing the speeches this evening and reflecting on the 2 proclamations made me think of the seminar last summer that you participated in, you were a leader in, and Dr. Jackson that educated the community about the fact that Olympia had a history of racial covenants. And it's very easy to, we have a very liberal community. It's very easy to kind of forget that these things happened in our community. And I so appreciate your leadership role and Dr. Jackson's and Auditor Mary Hall, who was a part of that presentation. And it just indicates to me that we must always be vigilant. Things do change. They can change for the better if we are of good hearts and will. But racial justice and justice for all people is something that we just have to constantly be working on and never let up on. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Councilmember Vanderpool.
Yeah, and I think another theme that really sticks out for me tonight is the future generations and what we do as policymakers, because you're not just saying this to anyone, you're saying this to 7 policymakers in the city of Olympia. You're saying, this is a reminder that all of our work that we do needs to include that healing. And from everything from the effects of covenants, as it was mentioned, or climate effects on communities of color and children's futures and education, and ensuring that folks or kids when feel accepted and loved and a part of their community in a way that kids don't always get, right? I was reminded of years ago, I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about how when schools were desegregated, a lot of the teachers were let go from those schools. And so a lot of kids grew up in, a lot of black and brown kids grew up in schools that all the teachers were only white, and that they didn't have role models, and they didn't have people in their community that represented them. And it put us in a place in this nation where we did one thing, but we didn't think about the consequences of helping those kids and ensuring that those kids feel wanted in their communities. And so us as council members, that's one of the things we have to do, really. Everything that we do, we have to make sure in the next 30 years these kids into the future have better opportunities. And that's the thing that sticks out to me.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Well, thank you all for being here to accept this proclamation and for your words. What an outstanding example you are, Zoe, as a mother, to be here and come up here in front of your daughters and share your words. That's incredible. What a great example of a mother they have in that, and to see that at such a young age is a blessing. I keep thinking about National Day of Racial Healing. And in order for there to be healing, you have to admit first that there needs to be repair, that there was harm that was done. And we still have a problem admitting that in some places in this country. We don't necessarily hear, but I will tell you, as Councilmember Barrett mentioned a moment ago about racially restrictive covenants and how we're still trying to work on repairing that harm and heal in this community as a result of that. That's tough work to do in a community that is seen as liberal or progressive. Sometimes it's actually worse in these communities because racism is allowed to fester and hide, as opposed to overt communities where it's kind of like the devil you know? And so it's when I think about the words National Day of Racial Healing, back to that accountability word, Stephanie, it is about the nation recognizing that there is healing that needs to be done, and we are all collectively responsible for that healing. Unfortunately, black and brown people have bared the brunt of actually having to heal ourselves. We have freed ourselves from slavery and every accomplishment that we have done since. And it's now the responsibility of the rest of the nation to join us in that effort. And that's no discount of the history that, yes, I do know that there were white allies and allies of other races that also did the right thing and were on the right side of history. Yes, that is true. But it is also true that we bear the brunt of our own healing. And so this is an invitation for our community, for everybody to join us in that healing together. I'm looking forward to joining the event this weekend. I'm going to be reading a book that it's called Your Name is a Song. I chose that book to read because there's some hard names to pronounce in that book. And the phonetic spelling is in there, and I still can't say it. So I chose it because it's we need to keep trying to say people's names correctly. Don't give people nicknames. Learn how to say their name. And I think that's such an important lesson to teach our children. So I'm looking forward to reading that this weekend. And so at this time, I am going to invite up Olympia Salazar-Dubrow, who has a few details to share about the event this weekend.
What an incredibly powerful night to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. So good evening, Mayor Payne and council members. For the record, my name is Olympia Salazar-Dubrow, and I serve as the Culture and Belonging Manager for Olympia's Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department. I also want to acknowledge and recognize my amazing colleague, Kelly Drake, who is in the audience tonight, the city's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator in our Human Resources Department. She's been instrumental in the planning of the city's activities around National Day of Racial Healing, and in writing the grant application for the National Recreation and Parks Association and W.K. Kellogg Foundation. So this grant, in addition to the support from our partners, made expanding our programming this year possible. And we, of course, want to thank our partners, the South Sound YMCA, Olympia Timberland Regional Library, the NAACP Thurston County Chapter, and Lexi Alberts Consulting. I also want to thank the following City of Olympia employee resources groups for their staffing support and sponsorship, which includes the Committee on Diversity and Equity, Olympia Mosaic Group, Oli QTs, and the Barrier Busters. So quite a few people are involved. So this month, the city is hosting two main activities for National Day of Racial Healing. We have gathered artwork from the community as part of an art exhibit centering the question, what does racial healing look like to you? The art exhibit is on display at Olympia City Hall. If you go just out this way, you can see that. And the Olympia Center, it's going to be up until February 28th. And we are also hosting a community conversation this Saturday, January 17th, from 1:30 to 4 p.m. at the Olympia Center in our multi-purpose rooms. And the program includes featured speakers from the NAACP, South Sound YMCA, and Mayor Dante Payne, which he just explained. He's going to be reading a story about racial healing for children called Your Name is a Song by Jamelia Thompson Bigelow, which was chosen in consultation with our friends at the Olympia Timberland Library. We will have a community cafe where participants will take part in reflective conversations. We will have a quiet room for moments of overwhelm, which will be staffed by a licensed social worker, and we will have light refreshments from Jerk and Tings. These events, of course, are free and open to the public, and we warmly invite everyone to join us and be part of working towards healing, which is ongoing work. So thank you so much for your time and for tonight. This was just so amazing, and it's really grateful to be here and to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. So now I'm going to invite our speakers up to receive the proclamation recognizing the National Day of Racial Healing and to take a photo. And again, if you wish to join us, please come on up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our final special recognition for tonight, which is proclamation recognizing Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Day. And we have a shared reading of the proclamation once again, beginning with Councilmember Madron.
Whereas the City of Olympia has prospered throughout its history from the extensive socioeconomic, political, and cultural contributions made by immigrants from every part of the globe. And
whereas the City of Olympia welcomes all who entered this country to escape social, religious, political, and economic oppression, or those in pursuit of its own founding promise of a brighter future. And whereas the City of Olympia is dedicated to the values of inclusivity, diversity, and hope. And
whereas the City of Olympia has committed to securing the freedom, rights, and dignity of all people who reside here. And whereas, as a declared sanctuary city, the City of Olympia continues to demonstrate its abiding commitment to protecting all immigrants residing here. And
whereas the City of Olympia decries enforcement actions by federal immigration authorities that undermine community trust, separate families, and create an atmosphere of fear among immigrant and refugee community members. And
whereas the City of Olympia welcomes the advocates for immigrants and refugees from throughout Washington who will attend the legislative session to advocate for legislative measures that will protect immigrants and refugees. And
whereas pro-immigrant measures are desperately needed to compensate for the weakening and removal of protections at the federal level. And
now, therefore, be it resolved that the Olympia City Council does hereby proclaim January 22nd, 2026 as Immigrant, Refugee, and Advocacy Day in the City of Olympia, and urge all residents to join immigrant advocates to petition our elected state representatives to enact legislation to provide state and local government protections to all immigrants and their families in the state of Washington. Signed in the City of Olympia, Washington, this 13th day of January 2026, Olympia City Council, Dante Payne, Mayor. Okay, and so we have a few more speakers here to accept the proclamation as well. We have Catalina Velasquez, who is the Executive Director of the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, Alan Flores Torres, the Executive Associate of the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, and Ernesto Oliva, the Campaign Manager of the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network.
Hi, everyone. Our Executive Director and Alan cannot be here, but they send their wishes and appreciation for today. So I will be representing today as the Campaigns Manager. Good evening, Council. Good evening, my fellow community members. My name is Ernesto Oliva. I use he, him, it pronouns. And as mentioned earlier, I do campaigns at WISN. So, as a statewide transnational solidarity coalition to protect and advance the power and rights of all immigrant and refugee communities, we are grateful to the City of Olympia for recognizing the critical importance of Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Day by declaring January 22nd, 2026 as Immigrant Advocacy Day. This proclamation symbolizes Olympia's ongoing commitment to fostering and welcoming community for all. We appreciate the Olympia City Council and Mayor Payne for recognizing and welcoming immigrants and refugees to Olympia and for affirming Olympia's ongoing commitment to be a sanctuary city for immigrants, refugees, and LGBTQIA+ communities. Migration has been around since the beginning of humanity. The current immigrants build alongside the children of other immigrants. We have demonstrated that we can achieve amazing things together. However, some groups are facing significant challenges due to their race, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, gender identity, disability, class, and citizenship status. For that reason, it is important to continue advocating from and for our communities. As we continue together today As we come together today to advocate for our immigrant and refugee communities, while we continue to face attacks on our rights at the federal level, it is more important than ever that our local governments stand up in solidarity and that we continue our ongoing work for justice. Our policy platform for this year is informed by the needs shared directly by our community members through listening sessions, conversations, and pragmatic data, as well as the priorities of our partner organization. Our policy platform is shaped by WISN's mission, values, and analytical framework, and created with guidance and approval from WISN's steering committee. This process ensures that our priorities are shaped by community needs, grounded in the conditions our communities face, and aligned with leadership of directly impacted communities of immigrant refugees. Through this model, WISN is meeting the moment with clarity. We are advancing a platform that dreams big while staying rooted in our frameworks, our stories, and our statewide work. This approach strengthens community leadership and supports the collective work to defend and expand the rights of immigrant and refugee communities across Washington. For 2026, our policy platform will prioritize the following: continue advancing health equity for immigrants through funding Apple Health Care expansion, seek investment for the WISN Deportation Defense Hotline, advance immigrant legislation which aims to protect our communities from federal mass deportation agenda, and support bills in our secondary and tertiary platform levels which advance efforts to keep our communities safe, meet our basic needs, protect our rights, and increase our access and agency. WISN unequivocally rejects any calls to action rooted in violence. We are committed to peaceful strategies that center dignity, autonomy, and respect for immigrants and refugees in Washington state. Our work is about protecting our communities, not putting them at further risk. We do not promote or condone violence in any form, including damage to public or private property. Solidarity means listening, respecting immigrant leadership, and showing up in ways that support, not overshadow those impacted. As we recognize Immigrant Advocacy Day, I encourage everyone here to reflect on what they can do to support their neighbors until dignity becomes a habit. Together, we are stronger. Please help us protect our community by sharing accurate information and standing firmly in collective care and justice. Once again, thank you to the City of Olympia for this proclamation and your continued support. Together, we can build a community where all people, regardless of immigration status, are treated with respect and justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. Any comments from the council? Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. I reserved my comments till this proclamation, but really I've been so moved just at all three that we've had tonight, and the fact that these are here together just is such an opportunity for celebration and for reflection as a community. And what it's brought up for me is about this time last year, Dr. Jackson, I had the opportunity to hear you speak at a Martin Luther King celebration, and you, part of your speech referenced Dr. King's words about, progress does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. And I think for many of us, and I'll speak for myself, it feels like it should, and it's easy to become very complacent. That we know better now. We know the history. We've seen it. We're not going to go back there. That's not going to happen again. And then now you look at the news every single day, and here we are again at things that happened 5 years ago, and 50 years ago, and 400 years. I mean, it is disheartening. So I'm grateful to all of you who are here with us tonight and who are doing this work. Doing the hard work that progress requires. Thank you for inviting us to walk with you. Thank you for holding us accountable, which we know our community loves to do, and I am very grateful that they do. So just thank you to all of you. Thank you for being here and for doing that work. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Councilmember Gilman.
I'm reminded of this weekend, we had the opportunity for the chairperson of the Squaxin Island tribe, Chris Peters, to speak to us about this place and the Squaxin people's long history here. And he said, so you've been immigrants or colonists for the last 200 years, and we have lived here for thousands and thousands of years. And they could hold a big grudge, but he said, it's just the reality. Here we all are, so how are we going to treat each other? How are we going to take care of each other? And that just was coming to my mind as we're speaking. And I want to give a special, we've been recognizing this Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Day for several years, but in the past 12 months, the WISN organization, the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, has exploded with both new demands on them and amazing building of new capacity and accommodating literally thousands of volunteers across the state who want to find out how they can stand alongside. So I want to invite you that if you think there's any chance you have a whistle that's more shrill or more loud than mine, that you should sign up through either a local organization or by reaching out to WISN through their website, because if we all stand together, we all stand a much better chance of getting through this together. So thank you for coming tonight.
All right, additional comments? All right, seeing none. Ernesto, thank you so much for coming here, representing WISN. And I so appreciate their work. It's critical now more than ever what you're doing, so thank you so much. I kind of feel like I would be remiss if I didn't kind of talk about what's happening in with the state of our country right now, and specifically as with the immigrant and refugee communities across our country. There's no words. I'm outraged. I think that what's happening is really, really despicable. We're going to look back at this time in this country, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. The fact that people are just being rounded up by our government, and we are told as citizens or residents of this country that we are the criminals, but it seems the criminals are actually inside of our government agencies. I'm really proud to be here recognizing this for several years in a row. As Councilmember Gilman said, I think you don't always necessarily recognize how much these words actually mean until we're in a time like this. And they matter more now than ever. And unfortunately, they don't carry the weight of policy that actually changes what happens in this community. But we have acted in several ways, as a city council, to really try to do what we can, what's within our scope or within our power to affect what's happening on the ground. We are a sanctuary city. Olympia welcomes all people, regardless of your background, regardless of your immigrant and refugee status. In fact, we just acted on a policy. One of our latest actions to protect this community was we passed some tenant protections that does no longer require the use of a social security number to apply for housing in our city. Yes, and that's such an important action to take, and it sounds like it could be something that's really minor, but I'm really, really proud of us for doing that, and I thank all of my colleagues who supported it and who worked on it within Land Use and Environment Committee to bring it forward to council. But it's things like that we do that makes it a little bit more easier to get through this time. And so I'm just grateful to live in a community where we can have nights like this, where we don't just express words, but we celebrate and we lift each other up in these most difficult times. And it's so important that we do it now more than ever. So it's a little bit of an equity night here for the Olympia City Council. I'm sure we get accused of always being about equity, and frankly, I'm fine with that. So we need to let each other know how important it is that we stand together. And so I see Mayor Pro Tem Lynn.
Yeah. Thank you for your words, Mayor. Totally agree. Also, I recently, our first speaker tonight, our first speaker for the National Day of Racial Hearing tonight, Victoria Harmony, being the regional manager of Timberland Regional Library for Olympia and West Olympia. I just want to thank you so much. Some of your staff team helped put together a Know Your Rights training that I recently attended. It was open to the community. I'm really, really hopeful there will be more of that. And I'm actually talking to City Manager Bernie to try to get some Know Your Rights training extended out as optional training for staff here at City of Olympia. Right, so we, as a community, when we see things like people being taken by ICE, right? And this terrible footage of it, it makes us feel, I think, nervous, enraged, and then also like a little bit like out of control. And so what we can do is help get as much information and training out there for folks. And the best possible thing that could happen is getting folks the information they need should something happen, and hopefully they'll never have to use it. So I'm encouraged by that. And then I also I see Bob Ziegler out there, and you're here every year, Bob, for this. It happens to be, I don't want to water it down as just a hot topic, but it is a big topic right now. Immigrant and refugees and everything that's happening to that community. And American citizens, it would seem, here in our country and even in our own community. But you're here even when it wasn't a big topic. You're here consistently. You show up here in city council chambers, and then you're on the Hill, right? And I'm pretty sure you don't actually need to care about it if you didn't want to. And it takes community members like that to step up to be an ally. And so I just really appreciate your presence along with Wyson. And for folks to know, not only do we say, yes, please go and advocate for immigrants and refugees, but also the Olympia City Council, we always have one council member that shows up, and we'll be on the Hill with you on the 22nd as well. So thank you so much.
All right. Yes.
Also, I learned in the Know Your Rights training that is actually incorrect to be, I don't think, hopefully no one in this room calls folks criminals that are undocumented, although it's actually not a criminal offense. So it's not correct. Okay, back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. It's important. All right, so Ernesto, I have a proclamation here for you. And please, again, if anybody wants to join us for the photo, please come on up and do so.
Oh, you got a bigger picture.
I have one job tonight, and that was to take photos, so I'll take a photo. It's okay.
One, two, three. No flash, but I've got the photos. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what a night. Well, have a great night, everybody. All right. So at this time, we are going to move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. And it looks like we have a few people signed up in person as well as one online. And we'll begin with the folks who are here in person. I do just want to mention, looks like we have a few people who haven't spoken in the last 30 days. So there is a clock to my right, your left here on the wall that indicates that you have 2 minutes of time for your comments. You can approach the podium for them, and you have a box there that has green, yellow, and red lights that indicates that your time has begun. When that light turns yellow, it means you have about 30 seconds remaining in your comments, and the red light indicates that you are to stop. If you don't finish your comments in the 2 minutes allotted, feel free to email the remainder of your comments to the council. So at this time, I'm going to call forward Christina McVeigh.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Payne and council members. Hello, my name is Christina McVeigh, and I'm one of the directors and founders of Franklin Street Harm Reduction. With me is my partner, Sean Wright, co-founder and development director of Franklin Street Harm Reduction, and also Kennedy Sadler, our operations director. We have just hit our 5-month anniversary, and while some of you already know us, it seems like an appropriate time to introduce ourselves to everyone here. So we are a privately funded nonprofit organization, and we provide resources and recovery support for mental health and substance use. We partner with Smart Recovery and Wildflower Alliance, and we currently host 9 support groups a week. This includes 3 drop-in Smart Recovery groups, and then we also offer off-site Smart Recovery groups in the community. And through Wildflower Alliance, we provide groups such as Alternatives to Suicide, Hearing Voices Network, and also some social groups such as Creative Expression, Skillshare, and Writing. We provide morning drop-in and resource hours in which folks can get coffee and use the bathroom and then connect to housing and treatment and other supportive resources. We also lease to the Thurston County Public Health, who provides their syringe exchange and Hep C program. In addition to this, we also invite community partners to provide services on site, and currently we have the following available resources. We have Department of Health, who provides rapid testing for Hep C, HIV, and syphilis. Innovations Human Trafficking Collaborative provides support for labor and sex trafficking. Community Youth Services provides connection to youth housing and shelter and services. Providence Street Medicine provides immediate on-site wound care. Oli Camp Kitties provides resources for spay, neuter, and vaccinations for cats. And OliMap provides coordinated entry services on-site for people who need access to housing. We welcome you to check out our website and social media. Our door is always open to discuss ideas. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right. Please hold your applause during public comment. I know it's a bit of a transition. Special recognition's all fun, and then public comments, a little bit more serious. All right. So, but please stick around because there may be comments or responses from the council after we finish our public comment segment. So next we have Sarah Hawk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Sarah Hawk, and I'm the Executive Director for Joint Animal Services. Today, I'm here to support amending Olympia Municipal Code to update regulations supporting urban agriculture, particularly the section concerning pet animals. I commend the staff and council for their careful work on the ordinance and proposed update to Olympia's pet limits specifically. Moving away from the traditional 3-pet cap is a significant step, and Jazz endorses both overall direction of this change as well as the staff's suggested approach. From our perspective, strict number limits often create challenges in practice. For example, when someone comes to us to adopt or foster a pet, we require to verify all animals in the household are licensed. This process often reveals that a family has already had 3 or more pets for the previous limit, and thus means we have to deny an adoption or a foster. Many of these families are responsible pet owners who are trying to help by adopting or fostering through the shelter, yet they are penalized for engaging with the system. Pet numbers alone do not reliably indicate neglect. While limits can help prevent hoarding and address welfare or public health issues, rigid caps may cause unintended problems, especially through inconsistent enforcement. I know many responsible pet owners with more than even the proposed limit that are excellent providers of care and animal owners. Dang. Although Jazz does not endorse a pet cap that is proposed, we do recognize the staff's viewpoint and support raising the pet limit. We also agree with the support of removing the restriction of no more than 3 of any species. These changes are a great first step from the City of Olympia that can take to support pets and their people in their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, and next we have Terry Ballard.
Ready, set, go. My name's Terry Ballard. I'm a 20-year resident of Thurston County. I retired in 2012 from the military after 35 years in the military, 29 towards an active duty retirement, and I was born here in Washington State. I'm here today for your help. I own 5 acres in Olympia, and I want to be represented with taxation, you know, the old word representation without taxation. The problem is with our county seat. County seat was established in 1861. I've given you guys all this packet. And the problem is we've moved outside that county seat, so therefore all legislation at 3000 Pacific is null and void. Also, I gave you the Attorney General opinions. I gave you also the lawsuit that you and Tumwater put towards Thurston County because they tried to move their courthouse outside the county seat. This was decided in 2004. They wanted to move out, and they tried to, but you held them to the standard of the law. This is a violation, where they're at is a violation of our Washington State Constitution and an array of RCWs, which I've included. Also, the word "at" is overly emphasized in there, but as far as RCW 36.40.130, it says that they have to be in the county seat, at the county seat, but they have to be in the courthouse. They have to provide it in the courthouse, so that would make the county seat the courthouse. So I've given you a bunch of packets to include a little quirk note in the back. I have the oath of office for a couple people, and the problem is up to the Attorney General, they don't want to represent me. Okay, they don't want to represent me, and that's why I brought you the packet. Easy reading. I put my point of contact down there if you want to contact me, and I will advise you accordingly, because these are the facts and not opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our in-person public comments. So we're going to transition to our one person we have online, which is Angelin Izquierdo. Is Angelin on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, council members. My name is Angelina Izquierdo. Thank you. You were close to mentioning the correct pronunciation. This comment is in response to what is being brought forth today. While I am an activist for equal rights and against discrimination, there seems to be a hidden message in between the lines of print that display a problematic situation that can become worse. If Ordinance 26-0041 is passed, there's currently an outrageous amount of heterophobia going on within our communities and also online. How many more letters are going to be added onto the LGBTQ to let these hateful people who do not respect monogamy, our way of living, and also believe in legalizing gay sexual experimentation that changes a person's gender, including their entire anatomy, which is part of human trafficking for fun? Why is there LGBTQIA2S+? That is a lot of letters. There are people adding 2 to 5 penises onto women and using pre-implanted human trafficking parts inside of the human body to grind out the genitalia we were born with due to genderism. This is a real-life situation happening right now in our state, as I am one of the female genital mutilation victims here. This ordinance would need to be put to a pause and brainstorm deeply on the repercussions, because we have a system already in place that respects the differences of people that is still leaving women behind, therefore becoming more broken. Let's improve the processes that we have in place first before we add onto the pile of issues, creating a larger mess to clean up. We have the non-discrimination disclaimer requirements already. Let's put those to use and still protect heterosexuals and their lifestyles, whether traditional or modernized, while helping women take claim of more rights. Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes public comment for tonight. So are there any comments from council? Councilmember Madrone, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Sarah Hawk from Joint Animal Services. Thank you for coming in here and commenting on some changes proposed for traditional pets. And I know I brought this up during the retreat, but just wanted to say, like, why are we talking about cats and dogs in an urban ag code update? And the reason for that is because as we've been working on this code update for many years, right, Casey? At a certain point, he realized we should separate the household pets from the chickens and the other farm pets, farm animals. And as he was talking to me about that, I recalled Sarah coming in previously and saying, hey, you know, this cap that you have on the number of pets that people are allowed to have makes it really difficult for them to do their jobs, to find homes for animals that really need them. And so we have that coming forward through the Urban Ag Code Amendment, but it was because the code was already open for traditional pets as well. And so it's an opportunity to do a little bit in our code for something that one of our community partners has asked us to do. I know it doesn't go as far as you would like, but it is late in the process. And I hope that it can help find more homes for pets. Once we get there on the agenda, we'll talk more about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Madrone. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah. I have 4 speakers, 4 very different topics. So I just wanted to say hello and thank you so much for the folks from Franklin Street Harm Reduction. I can see your faces, you're real people behind that, you know, and we've had some community members just ask us, like, hey, what's going on there? And we would like to answer that question a little bit better. And so you've shared a myriad of different services that you've either provide or partner with other folks. I would really be interested in having a tour. Maybe we can set up a tour of, I think there's probably a few people interested here, and so that we can know more, and then also just making sure that you know, there's not. I love that there's folks out there that care about people and want to provide care, and is if there's some way that we can work together so we're not duplicating any services, and also. Candidly, we have concerns raised by our community too, and I want to be able to resolve those as well, and lift up the good portions as well. So I will be reaching out about that. Do we have your email? I know we have Christina that spoke. Sorry, usually public comment's not a back and forth. I'm going to go on your website. No, it's okay. I started it. So thank you. We have the city manager. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the thought to come and introduce yourselves. Big deal. So, and then I will just want to respond to the last speaker. If we could just ask staff if Stacy, is the last speaker still on? Yes. Okay. So hopefully you can hear me. So there was a couple of parts in the beginning of your comments that broke up a little bit, so I'm afraid I didn't get the entire thing. But I think the biggest thing is there's some fear around the referral that's on the agenda tonight. And for folks that might not know what that is, the referral is consider agenda item 8A, consider a referral regarding introduction of a diverse family structure non-discrimination ordinance. So, we'll see at the end of the night if that passes with this council or not. Although, as one of the supporters and signers of that referral, I just wanted to offer that the goal is of this referral. I won't spoil it. We'll get there later on in the agenda. But the goal of this referral is not to take away. It is absolutely not to take away. It is not, I hope I'm not mischaracterizing some of your comments, but it is not to do anything against folks that are heterosexual. It is really, if anything, making sure that there are protections in place so that people can live the lives, live their life in the Olympia community however they wish. It is not taking away from folks that are monogamous, folks that are, I don't mean to be so playful, but folks that are monogamous and heterosexual, they continue doing that. Absolutely, there's nothing against that. It's just offering a protection to say that we realize that not everyone is heterosexual, that not everyone is monogamous, and we have heard from some of our community members that housing has been an issue of discrimination for them, and we don't want any type of discrimination in our community. So that's really the goal. And if there can be a change to our ordinance that allows more people to live the lives that they want and not harm other people, then I think that we should do that. So again, goal is not to take away, it's just to include, and we don't mean any offense to however people choose to live their lives. So for what it's worth, thanks for your comments.
All right, Councilmember Gilman.
So I also wanted to acknowledge Christina McVeigh's description of Franklin Street harm reduction. I have done a tour and also did a Thanksgiving feast together with them, and my wife and I have spent a lot of time on the sidewalk out in front. And there's just a couple things I wanted to call out. Today at the Thurston County Board of Health, we had a report from Katie Strozik, who's come here frequently to talk to us about the opioid intervention work that happens in Thurston County. And I think that Christina mentioned it, but Thurston County Public Health's syringe exchange and Narcan distribution is housed at the Franklin Street harm reduction. That when you were asking about what other services, the list that Christina made of other organizations are formally integrated into the services provided there. That's significant to me. The other thing that's been meaningful, and we've seen it with our own outreach teams and when we had the community care center, but there have been, over these 5 or 6 months, there have been stories one after another of a handful of people reconnecting with family somewhere else and getting a ticket to go home. There have been people who have gone into substance or mental health treatment, and there are a whole bunch of people showing up to do art projects and to do recovery groups. It's a steady flow across the day that I'm really grateful to see. So I just wanted to give that vantage point. I'm on the board of the church across the street, and I'm in charge of the facility part. So we interact in that way, and they've been an amazing neighbor, and services that are sorely needed. And the bottom line is a place where people feel safe and accepted and even loved, because that's hard to come by when you're in a doorway. Thanks.
All right, Councilmember Barrett, followed by City Manager Burney.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the Harm Reduction Center folks who've come. I drive by there almost every day. I have actually for several months. I have a hobby that brings me to the post office almost daily, and so I come by. And do want to say I really support everything that you do inside your facility. Inside your facility. I think you're doing wonderful work with people inside your facility. I think that in order to really move the ball on homeless services and addiction services and be effective in moving these programs forward, it is absolutely essential to maintain community support. And the only way we can, one of the essential ways we do that is by doing our best to, preserve an orderly sense of what's going on in the community. And so my colleagues know this. I've expressed concern about this because the facility on the outside has had a very heavy impact on a multi-block facility or part of the neighborhood. I know for a fact that numerous people have moved out of their apartments in adjacent facilities because they feel unsafe there. And I could go into specific details of why they feel unsafe, but I don't feel necessary to do that right now. But they feel unsafe. Frankly, a lot of the people who live in this neighborhood are poor. I'm not talking about the people attending your facility. I'm talking about the people who rent apartments adjacent to there. And so, I don't think we should just say, well, this is the poor part of town, and so we can look the other way on problems with facilities. In fact, I think we have to be especially sensitive to impacts on poor and elderly people who live there. Small businesses have been impacted. There was a food truck at the Three Magnets lot that had to move, and I'm sure there were many factors to that movement, but this was one of the many factors, was the impact from what's going on at the Harm Reduction Center. The Chehalis tribe, of course, is adjacent. They bought the 7th Avenue building. I'm very familiar with the 7th Avenue building and some of the activities of the tribe. One of the big differences between what you're doing and what the tribe is doing is that the tribe has security. They have security. And the feel for the activity related around the tribes, which are also health services. You did a great job of naming all the great services you're doing, but there's just a more orderly process there because they have security and it's being handled. Issues are being handled as they resolve. So, I repeat, I really do commend you for the work you do on the inside. Those are all critical services, and I don't know who else would do many of them in our community if it wasn't you. But this impact on our community, we've got to address it. We've got to address it. And I just kind of want to reiterate, poor people live in this neighborhood, and they're being impacted by what is going on. So I just want you to know I am personally kind of troubled by how rapidly certain things in that neighborhood have disintegrated because of the impact of the heavy impact of people using the facility. Obviously, there's a huge need for the services that you provide because there are lines out your door seeking those services. I understand that. But if the facility is inadequate, maybe some thought needs to be given to that. If there needs to be security maybe we should really think about that. Well, I'm sorry, I was unaware of that. Yeah. So because I've made a point of this, I just wanted to make sure that that I spoke to you directly about this. And by the way, I would love to come to work, come take a look at what you're doing on the inside as well. And I sincerely mean that.
Thank you. City Manager Bernie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two updates on these topics. One is we have Mr. Ballard's packets at the staff table, so we'll get them to all of you, so you'll have them. I think some of you were looking for them. We have them here. And then I have Ms. McVeigh's card. I'll give it to Melissa, the assistant to the city council, and I'll ask Melissa to reach out and maybe organize a tour for those that are interested, if that works for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any additional comments? Okay. First, Christina and team, thank you so much for being here tonight. I do appreciate seeing faces behind the site, so thanks for taking the time to come down. Admittedly, I, just like Councilmember Barrett, do have some concerns about outside the facility. However, I do want to say that the work that you're doing is certainly appreciated. Absolutely, is it a need for this community, especially now as clearly there is a demand for the kind of for the presence that we are seeing outside of the site. And so I'm happy to come and take a tour of the facility as well. I think this is a great way to start our relationship together and get off on the right foot. We can express the concerns that we have, and we can work together to address them. And I certainly, as of now, I have no reason to believe that you wouldn't do that because you are here tonight. So I so appreciate you coming down, and I look forward to partnering together to serve the people who are the most vulnerable in our city. So thank you for being here tonight. Also, Mr. Ballard, Jay just mentioned that we have your packets, but we'll have staff look into your concerns and follow up as well. To our, I'm skipping Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. It's always good to see you. And thank you for letting us know that you're supportive of our policy that's in front of us tonight. That's always helpful to know. Obviously, the committees and staff are always tracking that, but the rest of us aren't always. So it's great to see you here, and I appreciate you letting us know that you're supportive. Thank you. And for our last public commenter, I'm sorry, I don't know how to put this plainly, but I just simply don't agree with you. The LGBTQIA2S+ community has existed for some time. I understand that it is a long acronym. Yes, we even joke about that ourselves, those of us who are inside of those communities. But it is about visibility and people needing to be seen because they have been ignored and had to be hidden for so many years. And so I'm sorry that is how you feel. But in terms of protecting those who have different family structures, it's important that we expand civil rights. And we are continuing to push that boulder up the hill, and I see no reason why we should be rolling back. This may not be something that is that we quite understand everything about it tonight or right now at this moment in time, but I promise you that there will come a day where this will be more mainstream. And so the floodgates have been opened in that sense. And I think that it would serve us well and do us a lot of good to be on the right side of history and expand rights for people who live in our community, which is what this proposal will do. It's not about taking anything away, as the Mayor Pro Tem said. It is about making sure that these people who already live here are protected from discrimination in our community. This Unfortunately, it will only do just that. It doesn't expand any further protections, but I do just want to stress that these are people that are already here, and any action we might take on this tonight is not going to change that. And so I encourage you, please reach out if you want to learn more about the different kinds of people that live in our community. All right, so that concludes public comment for tonight. We are going to go ahead and move on to the adoption of the consent calendar. I need a motion to adopt the consent calendar as published.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. Are there any requests for polls for comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the consent calendar as published signify by saying aye. Aye. Consent calendar is adopted. So that takes us to our only business item, which is on our agenda tonight, item 6A, which is the approval of an ordinance amending Olympia Municipal Code related to development code updates to support urban agriculture. And we have Casey Schaffler, who is the Associate Planner of Community Planning and Economic Development, here to present tonight. Hi, Casey.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. For the record, my name is Casey Schaffler. I'm an associate planner with Community Planning and Economic Development. Thank you for having me here tonight to discuss this. I'll be providing a very brief update on the comp plan goal and policies that support urban agriculture, as well as some background on the urban farming work group. I will also go over the review of municipal codes that tried to identify potential barriers to urban ag and how we can address those barriers. So starting off with our updated Goal 29 from the Olympia 2045 Comprehensive Plan. This is the updated goal that you just adopted. And this goal is now supported by 16 new policies that previously were only supported by 11 policies. So this is updated, and I just want to reiterate that the ordinance and the work that goes into this is well supported by our comprehensive plan. So, the Urban Farming Work Group formed back in 2020 with recommendations presented to the Land Use and Environment Committee in 2021 and 2022. To carry out some of those recommendations, the city prepared a contract with Thurston Conservation District for 3 primary tasks, those being to expand community gardens, to incentivize urban agriculture and remove barriers in city codes, and to connect private vacant land with potential farmers. In addition, the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department had another contract with a consultant to examine the possibility of an agri-park in the city of Olympia. That consultant's analysis focused on the feasibility of an urban farm park maintained and operated by the city of Olympia. However, it concluded that the city of Olympia currently lacks the staffing and funding capacity to embark on a full-fledged effort to move a farm park forward without increasing staffing capacity to oversee the planning, design, and implementation of that project. So with that being said, we're really focusing on task 2, which is removing barriers in city code more than anything else. So that's not to say that work isn't being done, but this is really focused on kind of opening the door and having that door open to opportunities in the future. So under existing municipal code, zoning doesn't present really significant barriers. Urban agriculture and agricultural practices would be permitted outright in most districts except in downtown, as well providing commercial scale greenhouses and nurseries that would require a conditional use permit. This remains even in the proposed update. Some of the concerns are around water access. Some of the properties in the city of Olympia that would be viable for urban agriculture are on wells. So one of the concerns that we've tried to address and look into are reducing barriers to creating municipal water discount rates, which already exist with some limitations, but we don't currently have a policy on connecting those properties to a hydrant or other options for agricultural use. Additionally, urban ag uses as they currently exist in code are permitted if secondary to a primary use. We previously also had some confusion on whether a change of use is required and whether that would trigger infrastructure improvements. So hopefully this ordinance will really address some of those code barriers that I just described. So going back to the original proposal that was brought to land use, I think back in 2022, it created a new agriculture definition that limited uses to small-scale growing and harvesting, which was not well defined at that time. Based on the discussion and some of the ongoing conversations with the Land Use Environment Committee as well as at the Planning Commission, takeaways for revision were to address in particular, agricultural animal practices, an example being given of somebody trying to have sheep for wool production, and to look to our neighbor jurisdictions for their urban agricultural ordinances, and to address those questions that I just raised around water, and to identify ways for the city to actively engage in agricultural practices. So one of the things I do want to address, and I won't go into too much detail on it, is the discussion around irrigation and the irrigation discount. Currently, to receive a discount, a property must have an irrigation meter. The Land Use Committee asked if it would be possible for water to be provided via an existing fire hydrant. In consulting with staff at Public Works, they were supportive to the use of fire hydrants for urban agricultural use in lieu of an irrigation meter, provided that certain conditions were met. And that includes, and it's not in lieu of, one of the conditions that they have is that the actual hydrant must be metered and a meter deposit paid. They would also request that there's backflow prevention, including testing and ownership of the backflow device provided by the landowner. And then the use of the fire hydrant would be considered temporary, consistent with irrigation period of spring through fall. So there was some additional discussion, and there are some additional points that we could go into on how to provide relief for an irrigation meter. Public Works is very open to conversations on providing either increased discounts or other funding sources to help provide that irrigation access. So, all right. So going back to 2024, we came back with an updated ordinance that actually defined that, when we originally introduced this, urban agriculture was very narrowly defined in urban zones and emphasized small-scale, non-nuisance uses. It also implied that agricultural uses were secondary to the primary use. This proposal, however, utilizes the existing agriculture definition, and it applies it to additional residential and commercial districts. It states explicitly that the agricultural use may be the primary or secondary use. It also updates the traditional pet sections in both the residential and commercial chapters. Additionally, we're hoping to clarify some of our land use processes related to agriculture that were raised when Land Use and Environment Committee first reviewed this. So, agricultural uses as defined in OMC 1802-180 would be allowed as a primary or accessory use in all residential and commercial zoning districts, except for auto services and industrial zones, pursuant to additional requirements outlined in the proposed ordinance. The applicable regulations would be a new section KK. And I will just note that that really applies permissible use in every district except, as you can see right there in the middle, the AS Auto Services. As for the land use approval process, it is only required for the following types of projects: a change of use of land or addition that results in substantial revision to the approved site plan, any new non-residential and non-agricultural use of the land, and the location or construction of any non-residential or non-agricultural building or any project in which more than 4 dwelling units are contained. Additionally, Olympia Municipal Code provides that upon finding that any land use application meets the criteria for land use review, but the scope or scale of the project does not warrant land use review process, the director may waive the land use review process and appropriate land use application fees. Hopefully what you're hearing in that context is that an agricultural use would generally not be a land use application raised to the level of a land use application. And even if it did, there are some instances and opportunity where we could waive that process and fees accordingly. It's going to be pretty dependent on if they're proposing really large structures and impacts, particularly to transportation. But in general, agricultural uses, production of crops, things of that nature, even farm stands, don't raise to the level of a land use application. Oh, and I will just touch on auto services is excluded. Auto services is kind of a unique zoning district, and it's very much defined as to encourage development of a regional center for auto sales and services and related uses. That seemed incongruous with agricultural uses, so that's why that is excluded. So, the ordinance before you tonight, I want to highlight two distinct separations here, key distinctions between 2 acres or more of property and 2 acres or less for agricultural uses, and that's really more applicable for animals. You'll note that 2 acres or more will now apply the United States Department of Agriculture count of animals, and they have USDA animal units. So when you're thinking of cows, pigs, emus, really large, and even has something like prairie dogs as an agricultural unit count. 2 acres or more, we're going to apply, if you are having agricultural animals, that's going to be dependent on the 2 acres or more, and it depends on how many acres you actually have. We'll adjust just how many animals you can produce and have on site. 2 acres or less will primarily hold to what our traditional pet requirements are currently. It does add turkeys and quail. As I mentioned here, pigs, our code actually calls out pot-belly pigs. Pot-belly pigs are not a distinct breed of any sort. So we're just applying pigs as a USDA animal, removing that from our code. Some of the things that this ordinance does not address that was raised by Public Works, but is discussed in the staff report. One of the concerns raised by Public Works is that there are some rules and regulations around the treatment of noxious weeds, in particular that noxious weeds can pose significant risk to livestock. So there is suggestion of registering properties with livestock in order to remove weeds within 500 feet in order to protect those animals. And then it also doesn't update any fees for water issues that we've already discussed. There's opportunities to address those outside of this ordinance if needed. The acreage count that's discussed here, it does, the total acreage includes contiguous parcels that are being utilized by the same agricultural operation. So if you have 2 neighbors that want to utilize their land combined for agricultural purposes and they're contiguous, they can certainly do that and apply the acreage count for those animals as needed. From there, I also want to point out that a lot of what you're seeing in some of this verbiage comes from the City of Tumwater's ordinance related to urban agriculture, as well as Thurston County's urban agriculture ordinance as it applies to the Olympia urban growth area. So And I will also highlight that it does include nuisance clauses for preservation of water resources, as well as for community peace, health, and welfare.
Casey?
Yes.
We have a question from Councilmember Green.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Payne. Can you go back to the prior slide for me? So can you give me an example? So in the, like cows, what would be an animal unit per acre?
I will scroll to the very end, so
Oh,
please
okay.
don't mind my scrolling. It is an additional slide. So this is pulled, this is not an official document from USDA. This is actually from, I believe, Nebraska's Department of Agriculture. So USDA animal units, we're not adopting it per code. It's more of a guideline, and it's going to be applied more really only in the instance if we have to go through a code enforcement issue, and that's kind of, I'll address that to some degree as well. When we talk about animal counts and USDA animals, I'll be very blunt. We don't necessarily have staff that's going to be subject matter experts as it applies to identifying USDA animal counts. This is a guideline at best in a worst case scenario where we have an instance of animal hoarding or animal neglect or some other code enforcement issue that we have to address. We will refer back to this for those purposes. So when you're looking at a USDA animal unit, a 1,000 pound cow without a calf is considered a 0.92 animal unit. As I mentioned, you'll see down there, a prairie dog counts as a 0.004 animal unit. So this includes sheep, bison, and I believe this is a non-exclusive list, but this is the general guideline that we're referring to within the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I have one additional question on that slide, but 4,000 prairie dogs per acre feels like a lot. On the prior slide, when you talk about the nuisance for community peace, the nuisance clause, whose determination is, like if somebody were to complain, so you had to do a code enforcement, who gets the determination of is this a nuisance to community peace, health, or welfare?
So that was a major discussion point at the Planning Commission as well. And it's going to come down to a formal complaint, and code enforcement would have to follow up on that complaint. And it's something that we discussed as staff, especially when it comes to noise or smell. If it's readily apparent on inspection, if you're a few houses away, if there's onerous noise outside of our noise ordinance times, or if the smell is absolutely overwhelming, or if we're determining that there is runoff of any sort into our streams, we would have to go through our code enforcement process in that sense. So it's hard for me to give you a really definitive answer on how we approach that. A lot of it's going to be based on the observation and the conditions at the time of a code enforcement action.
Thank you.
And I will point out, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add to that a little bit because we do have an ongoing contract with Thurston Conservation District to support urban agriculture. And part of that contract is to provide technical assistance within the city. And so if we do have a situation where, somebody's not taking care of their animals right, they're not managing waste, it's getting to the water, it's creating smells. Another action here that could happen with code enforcement before the hammer approach is to bring the Thurston Conservation District in, who we have under contract, to provide technical assistance and help somebody understand the correct way to manage livestock and other animals so that we can resolve the issues on a voluntary basis rather than having to come in and sit in a punitive way.
Thank you, Councilmember Madrone. That's actually what I was going to get to as well, that code enforcement, they try to address through voluntary compliance. First, they try to educate, work with anyone who's has a complaint against them, and it's punitive measures are our last resort, and they wanted to make that very clear as part of that conversation with the Planning Commission. And when it comes to animal welfare in particular, code enforcement is very much prepared and familiar with Joint Animal Services and Thurston County Services when it comes to animal welfare. So that's not something that we as a city necessarily address directly. All right. So I
have a question, and forgive me, this may be outlined, but when I think of pests, I also think of rodents. And, particularly with chickens, if the larger chicken operation draws heavy rodents, and would that be under the Department of Health, the regulation of rodents, or how if a neighbor came and said, oh, suddenly there is a significant rodent problem related to this urban farm, what would we do?
So that was part of that code enforcement conversation as well. And if there was any sort of sanitation issue and it was presented to code enforcement, we would come out to the and try to work with the property owner to address any sort of sanitation issues and try to work with any sort of pest control where possible. So if it's presenting issues, that would be something that we could address through code enforcement. And there are a number of different ways that they could approach that. There's no one set kind of handbook or process to do that. It's going to be very situation dependent on the site conditions and what we can address there on site.
Thank you.
The revised proposal was presented to the Planning Commission over 2 meetings, a briefing followed by a public hearing, with deliberations immediately following the close of the public hearing. Discussion at the Planning Commission was focused largely on animal enclosure setbacks, beekeeping rules, and nuisance abatement for the sake of neighbors adjacent to future agricultural activity. So just as you're raising those questions, that was a major part of the discussion at the Planning Commission as well. The Land Use and Environment Committee concurred with the Planning Commission recommendations. Additionally, the Land Use and Environment Committee recommended to remove aesthetic impacts from nuisance and welfare enforcement section. Committee members at that time expressed concerns that aesthetic impacts was a personally subjective criteria that would present difficulties for our code enforcement and the community planning and economic development team. All right. This takes us to our pet sections. So the OMC definition is of a pet traditional is animals which can be housebroken, walked on a leash, are frequently but not necessarily housed within the residence, or as a class judged neither obnoxious nor to pose a public safety to or health threat. Traditional pet birds include songbirds and parrots. That's under our 1802 definition. With this ordinance, you'll see an expanded definition of traditional pets that includes small animals, including aquarium fish, reptiles, spiders, insects, and other types of creatures that are kept in enclosures, pens, cages, aquariums, terrariums, etc. I want to make sure that there's an understanding that those small pets do not count towards that as it's currently in the proposed ordinance, the 6 or fewer, and the 3 of no more than 3 of any species. That's I'll address that additionally here in a moment. Traditional pets. And one of the reasons we wanted to update this in both the residential and commercial is because as current code stands, they have different criteria. So we're making the same criteria in both the residential and commercial chapters. That's the other impetus for our update to the traditional pet section in particular. All right, so following Land Use and Environment Committee, we did have some additional conversations with Joint Animal Services. And as you already heard this evening, they had some requested amendments that really are concern that otherwise adoptable pets would be prohibited at a home because they're already hitting that 3 pet limit. What staff is recommending this evening is to up that to 8 and remove that no more than 3 of any given species. Now, I think there's some chatter around that. The reason we're proposing a limit on pets really comes back to the health and welfare of neighbors and the health and welfare of pets. Speaking as an owner of 3 dogs can be a lot, even in my own residence, especially 2 small dogs that bark at any movement within a mile radius. So we are proposing to have a limit in particular, not because we actively enforce this and we go out door to door trying to find out who has 8 pets or less. This is very much left in place as something that we can enforce in what would either be a complaint issue or the unfortunate possibility that there is criminal activity that would require us to remove pets from that situation. So there is that limit that we are proposing. We propose 8, but that is open to other discussion.
Sure. Casey, Councilmember Barrett has a question.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Regarding pets, when I saw this in relation to agriculture or what I actually thought of is people who breed dogs or breed cats or whatever. Is this a section that would essentially regulate that kind of activity?
That is separate. We have specific code and ordinance around dog breeders, cat breeders, things of that nature. Those are still prohibited within the city limits. So USDA animals, it would still prohibit a dog breeder as it stands. So that is separate.
So you could have 8 to 10 pet dogs, but you couldn't have a dog that had 6 puppies.
So we have code that addresses that as well, and it actually within the code, if it's I believe it's 6 months or less, you can have puppies, but as they grow older, we would still technically require that those dogs or cats be housed appropriately if you're hitting that limit. The other thing I will point out is that when we have dog breeders, cat breeders, things of that nature, our code is really specific to that being for profit. So if you have a pet store or a dog breeder, we still prohibit that as a for-profit business or endeavor.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Casey.
So with that change, staff is recommending that you move to adopt the urban agriculture updates with proposed amendments as discussed. And for your consideration is that second to last bullet there. We're recommending that you strike the 6 and in conversation with Joint Animal Services and Sarah Hawk, her preference would have been, Joint Animal Service preference would be to 10, as you heard this evening, possibly more. Staff is proposing 8, and again, that's partially due to the fact that one of the reasons we don't want to have a huge change here is because we haven't been able to vet this through a public process. So this has already gone through public hearing, it's gone through land use environment. We don't necessarily want to propose a huge drastic change that didn't have public input opportunity. But we are also proposing and recommending that you strike the no more than 3 of any given species. So if you had 8 dogs or 10, that would be allowed if you were to adopt those amendments. So that is what staff is recommending this evening. So happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Casey. Looks like we have some questions. Council members, do you mind if I go to our former chair of land use first and then turn to you? Okay, yes. So Councilmember Madron.
Thank you. Casey, it's been such a long road to get here. My goodness. Sometimes things just take a while to go through process, and then we were going to go through this last fall, and then the comp plan was so much and the budget was so much that we pushed it off to early this year. But I'm thinking it's going to be the year of food, because we had the food system plan on the agenda last week, and we'll be working on that this year. And you shared a lot around the background of the where this work came from, but I wanted to share with you all, I had a conversation with somebody today. I got an email from somebody who said, I live on a 13-acre lot that's in city limits, and we're really limited in what we can do in terms of agriculture. I hear you're the person to talk to about this. Can you talk to me about this? I don't think he even knew that this was on our agenda tonight. I think it was actually completely random that he reached out to me today, because when I called him up, he said, how come I can only have 5 chickens on 13 acres? It doesn't make any sense. And I walked him through the proposed changes, and the detail is in the code, not really so much in the presentation, but it just, most people will still only be able to have 5 chickens. Once you have a 1/4 acre, you can have some more. Once you have more land than that, you can have even more. And he was so happy to hear that we're voting on this tonight. Him and his partner have 13 acres in city limits, and they want to do a lot more with that land than we currently allow them to. So just wanted to provide that very real-time context for a conversation that's been happening for a few years now at the city in terms of updating these amendments. And it's not anything revolutionary. We're just kind of looking at, what does Tumwater do? What does the county do? In the urban growth areas? Okay, let's just do that. So it's not even anything that's super revolutionary. Casey, you made a comment earlier about like the urban farm park that, we did a whole feasibility study around that. And the decision wasn't necessarily, we can't do that. We can't hire a bunch of staff to create a farm and manage a farm. But one of the things that I know that Silvana is working on is who can we partner with in that regard. Olympia School District, I've had some conversations with Grubb. We've got one of our neighborhood association folks who commented on the food system plan last week who said, what about a decentralized concept for an urban farm park where we're figuring out how to grow food all over the place? And I think these conversations will come about as we talk about a food system plan. And these code changes will help with all of that. I mentioned the Thurston Conservation District earlier, and Casey mentioned them as well. They've been a strong partner in this work, and I know they are in it to win it with us as partners in helping us as a city meet our goals around urban agriculture and local food production. And so I wanted to share some of that. Also wanted to give a big thanks to Casey. I think when you came to land use, you were like, wow, I've learned a lot. I'm a city boy, and now I know how many prairie dogs make up an animal unit for USDA. I think those numbers came from some Midwest area, right, where there are lots of prairie dogs. So I am excited about this work. It's been a long time coming, and excited to support it. I think there's a question in there for us around traditional pets, if we want to cap it at 8 or cap it at 10. I think there's been some negotiation between our staff and like the trepidation around, it hasn't really gone through a whole lot of process at this point. It was just kind of flagged late in the process that there's something we could do to support pets that need homes, and then Sarah, of course, wanting us to remove the cap altogether. So I think there might be a little bit of discussion for us of do we want to land on 8 or 10, but otherwise I'm fine with all the other things that you've proposed around traditional pets as well, and curious to hear from my colleagues on all this.
Thank you, Councilmember Madrone. So, okay, we've got quite the queue here. So we're going to begin with Councilmember Green, then we're going to go to Councilmember Gilman, and we're going to have Councilmember Vanderpool, and then Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. And my comment will be short. Thank you, Councilmember Madrone, for those comments, because that kind of touched on my question, but where I'm struggling is the 6, 8, 10, and so I was curious what land use and whether Planning Commission weighed in on that, because I'll be honest, I don't feel like I have grounding of what would be the rationale for one decision over another. And obviously we heard from Director Hawk, and I think there's a lot of validity in that. And so for me, it's how do I get over like just thinking about 8 pets or 10 pets in a home feels like a lot, but I get that that's, to a person who has 1 or 2 pets generally.
Yes. All right. Councilmember Gilman, followed by Councilmember Vanderpool.
So first, I just want to clarify, you used prairie dog as an example, and you don't mean Mazama pocket gophers. You're not advocating for people to bring those into their yards.
No, Councilmember, not at all.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify, the prairie dog and a pocket gopher are not the same thing. But related to that issue of USDA animal units, we had a long discussion several years ago about weeder goats and whether they might, the kind that come and do the back of the Target on the west side or did the Joy Avenue path in the northeast neighborhood. People keep goats as a business to put into places that are full of Scots broom and blackberries and have them mow them down. So my understanding would be they're each 0.15 of a unit. So if you had 2 acres, you could keep 13 full-size goats in the city. Does that sound correct?
Without crunching the numbers, I'm going to trust that your math is correct there, Councilmember.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's 13.333 is the dividing 2 by 0.15. Anyhow, but that general idea that the for larger parcels over 2 acres, it's full-size livestock. It's just the pygmy animals are for city lots, basically, the small livestock.
I think that's a fair assessment of it, and I don't know if I included that on any of the slides specifically, but yes, for the 2 acres or less, it is more limited to non-agricultural animals. When you think of like a cow, when you think of sheep, things of that nature, you're really not going to get that on the 2 acres or less. The 2 acres or less is more focused on, it does allow for like range birds, like turkeys, chickens, things of that nature, up to a certain number. And as alluded to otherwise, if you have a 1/4 acre or more, you can increase that slightly, even at the 2 acres or less. But if you're on that 2 acres or less, you're really not looking at animals like pigs, cows. I'd have to double check if goats would be included under that. I think goats would still technically be allowed in the 2 acres or less.
Possibly, not to push back, but it does say miniature or pygmy in the list of our allowed livestock. But that's fine. That's fine. The other point I wanted to make, I'm very excited about the possibilities for agriculture in town, and the question about, like, I don't have a strong feeling about 8 or 10 because I believe it's mostly complaint driven, and then we need some sort of a tool. And if we get into a situation of hoarding or sanitation issues, they need some enforcement tool. But I think that those are the tools to use, and it reminds me of when McKinley School was on Boulevard, where Orla is now. People across the street kept peacocks, and they screamed like something was dying while kids were on recess. And probably not an ideal pet, but there would be a path to address that through code enforcement if there are those kinds of impacts on neighbors. So I don't have a strong feeling about the number, and I also think that these different concerns about whether it's sanitation, pests, noise, that we already have mechanisms to address those.
Yeah, I will say that peacocks are still prohibited. I was disappointed in that decision. Yeah, and then I did pull this up here where we do allow, we added turkeys, quail. Pigs are now counted under USDA, but we do still, and again, a lot of that language is actually coming directly from City of Tumwater and Thurston County. So when we look at kind of these distinctions, we're looking to our partner jurisdictions on what are kind of their best practices, and that's why we're trying to mirror that, one, for sake of convenience for people living in our community and adjacent communities, so that it's not this completely different from if you're on the City of Tumwater limits and your neighbor just happens to have some things that we're trying to make that somewhat close in nature. But when you talk about some of the other animals, yeah, a lot of it really, we have the hard number limits, And that's more so that our code enforcement has something to stand on, because when you take that away, it does make it more subjective. It gets more difficult for us to really adamantly address any major concerns. So I'm not saying it's the best possible way to address that, but it's kind of what we have to, it's the tool we have to address it currently, or the best proposed that I could provide.
All right, we have Councilmember Vanderpool, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
I think my question about the 8 to 10 has a lot to do with whether or not that'll have any effect on rentals in the city. Like, are rentals still going to bar people and cap them at 2 pets? Because that's one of the biggest concerns I've heard from Joint Animal Services and helping out with the number of adoptive pets is either the size of the pet, which is a whole other thing, it's not in this, but the other part of it is the cap that people run into.
Yeah. This ordinance wouldn't address those apartment restrictions or rental restrictions. And kind of one of the approaches and things that we'll tell folks a lot at the planning counter is that in a lot of instances, you can be more restrictive, but you can't be more permissive. So if we said a hard limit of 5 chickens or 5 dogs, whatever it is that we land on, you couldn't have a rental say, no, it's A-okay for us to allow you to have 10. The rental might say you can have 10, but that would still be against our ordinance. So kind of coming back to the roundabout answer of, you can be more restrictive, but you can't be more permissive, if that makes sense, council member.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah. Thank you, Casey. And our, I guess, 2025 land use members for helping us get us to where it can come across tonight. I acknowledge that there's been a lot of good work in this. I will say I am concerned about lifting the animal pet limit. With from 6 pet to increase in any number, so I'll just be honest about that. Taking into account, we're talking about pet animals, so I could see why, if you were having livestock, why it could be reasonable that you would have 6, or more than 6, including chickens, right? Chickens that are for laying eggs, and I digress. And then also taking into feeling fine with lifting the no more than 3 of any species. I feel like that's like a little subjective. And then small pets, right? So just, my attention draws to small pets do not count towards this goal. And that includes, just for anyone that doesn't have this right in front of them, is small mammals, little tiny dog. Big fan of the little tiny dog, so I could have as many as I want. And then aquarium fish, reptiles, spiders, and insects that are kept in enclosures such as pens, cages, aquariums, and terrariums within the dwelling limit don't count towards this limitation, right? Oh, no. Sorry, that's rhetorical. I can read it here. It doesn't count, but please add.
When you were referring to the small pet animals, I don't think that's inclusive of small dogs. It's including those animals that are in aquariums, terrariums, things of that nature.
But it says mammals, and mammals aren't kept in aquariums or terrariums.
Hamsters, guinea pigs, I think is the intent there.
Oh, I see. Is there a size limit or a weight limit? That would be very helpful.
We can address that.
Okay, yeah, that would be really helpful, because it's like, yeah, okay, thank you. The other thing, so then that would not be a small cat. Okay, so, small, to me, it's like, okay, we're having all these cats now, because I think of a mammal as a bear, and then, you get it.
Yep, I understand.
Yeah, so if we could address that, that would be helpful. I'm not feeling, I mean, maybe I could get there. I'm not sure if I could get there tonight, but I'm not feeling the need to. I understand that we had Sarah Hawk here, and I do want to lift that up. I wish she was still here so we could ask her more questions about it and have it back and forth. But I'm not seeing the need to lift the 6 pet animals. I'm really not. Knowing that small animals are not included. Thanks for clarifying for the small mammals. And then also, if your dog or your cat had babies, right? So I understand that doesn't count towards animals that are under 4 months. So that addresses that. But being that the 6 animals, it's already at 6, it's not tied to how big your lot size is or your home is. And that's a little bit with assumptions too, because if you had a lot of acreage, you might still have 6 cats that you don't let out, right? So
there was some conversation that I had with Sarah about that, and I think there is some possible language that could, and her concern in particular around the pet limit. It is only partially about families or households that want to adopt more than that number, but it's also those households that foster animals. So there was concern that even if you had either an organization that lives in a house that does foster, they might have animals temporarily for 4 or 5 months at a time, and they're trying to get those to other homes for permanent adoption. They had concern that the limit would prohibit some of those types of fosters within our community, where we could have at least temporary housing for those animals before they're permanently adopted. So
thanks.
One of the things that we did suggest is that if that was something we wanted to address separately, we could possibly have some language around that, because one of the questions I posed to Sarah was, do they have registered foster organizations or households? So if that was a direction that council would like us to pursue, I think we could look into some language around a carve-out specifically for fosters.
Thank you for that. That's really helpful. Thanks for doing your homework, meeting with Sarah. Casey never takes compliments well. So that is something that I would like to see, and that is something that will get me there. I'm not sure, what the council as a majority will decide tonight, but for me, I just feel like without that specified, and then it sounds like I saw you jotting down for the small mammals, so hopefully we can get that sort of reined in so that people are clear about what the definition of that is. I just don't see the need to lift to 6. I really worry about, one, the sanitation issues, and then and I hear that we have other mechanisms of if that was reported, because again, our code enforcement doesn't go out there looking for people. So if that was reported as a sanitation issue, then we would respond. But I wouldn't want for, on one hand for the policy to be, it's kind of like what you were saying, I wouldn't want it to be so loose that there's a sanitation problem that happens. Wouldn't want it to encourage that. And then the other thing is I worry about the quality of life of the pets, just having so many within the city limits. Again, that it's not tied to how large the property is or anything. So it's just a concern of mine.
Understood.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, all great points. I think I'll just cut to the chase and say that Councilmember Green's comments about 6 or 8 versus 10. I don't really understand what is the rationale for such a decision from us. What is it that distinguishes it, so specifically? And I'm very unclear as to why we would raise it, because I'm having a hard time imagining what this could look like for a small apartment or something to that degree. Because to Councilmember Vanderpool's point about renters, I understand that it is that they can be more restrictive rather than less, and rightfully so if they own the property, right? It should be at their discretion to determine that. So if somebody could please help explain, and honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that Joint Animal Services is supportive of removing. Yes, I mean, there is the foster carve-out, thank you. But I'm really just having a difficult time understanding, like, what is the impetus for us to make the change in the number other than, you know, maybe people have a few more pets. But I'm still feeling like 8 to 10 is a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will say that the 6 and the no more than 3 of any species, that is language pulled directly from Thurston County and from City of Tumwater. So that's a straight copy and paste from our partner jurisdictions and trying to mirror what they do. I think for Joint Animal Services, the concern is that particularly under our current code, it's no more than 3 at all, and they've had households that they've had to reject for adopting a 4th pet. For example, somebody might have three cats, but they don't have a dog. There's some discussion on is one additional dog and a household of 3 cats a major issue? You know, subjective call, absolutely. So I think that's why staff is supportive, particularly of especially the no more than 3 of any species, and then looking at the partner jurisdictions, they do the limit at 6. I think I will share that staff does have some concern. Councilmember Byrne, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Some of the concern at the staff level was once you get to that number of pets, it's going to be hard for us to distinguish, is that a kennel? Is that just pets? You know, I won't deny that was a conversation held at the staff level as well.
Okay, thank you, Casey. And yeah, Sarah did say that, so thanks for that reminder. That was a little earlier when she spoke. She did mention that about the different species. Councilmember Madron.
Yeah, so I'm hearing some, you know, from some folks like 8, 10, I don't really know, and some other folks saying, why would we go higher than 6 at this point? So because this component of it hasn't been vetted beyond this stage in the process, my recommendation is that we stick with 6 and strike the and no more than 3 of any species. That will take care of the primary concern from Joint Animal Services. And then I would request that the Land Use Committee, which I no longer serve on, talk about their work plan, because that was one of the items on the work plan for us as a council. You know, is there more that we need to do around pets? And so I just would ask the Land Use Committee to kind of explore that question at your next meeting when you're finalizing your work plan. Is there more to be done here? Knowing that staff have already invested some time, there might be some carve out for foster pets. There might be something to explore there, but just to have that additional conversation within the Land Use Committee and then bring that back to us. Because what I don't want to have happen is that these urban ag code amendments that we've been waiting years for get held up because we can't decide on the number of cats or dogs someone can have. So how does that sound? I did see that Councilmember Barrett had raised his hand, so I'm not trying to close the conversation. I'm just trying to bring us to, I am trying to bring us to a close, but not telling you.
That's much appreciated, Councilmember Madron. Councilmember Barrett.
I only have this comment, and that is, I think this is great, this discussion, and I'm willing to go with 6 or 8 or 10. Personally, I want to make that clear. But I do think I would like to have a discussion later about what is the problem with someone raising 1 litter of animals for sale. You know, it could easily be done in a home, and it's a hobby for some people. And there are good animal breeders. And so that's a discussion I'd like to have, frankly. I don't see the harm in that. I'm sure there must be some justification for outlawing it that I need to learn about, but that's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Barron. I think the problem is that the ordinance would be drafted too broadly, so we would have to be specific if we, but Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit talking before my time on things I didn't work on, so there's that. But there was a past council that was pretty concerned about puppy mills, right? So when people are not doing it well. And so I'd also kind of be interested in seeing, like, looking into that. And so maybe that's something that staff could send us as far as a question about breeding. So that would be good to know. And then, hey, I was so focused on what you said, I forgot about mine. Oh, yeah. So I just wonder if in here, and I have the printed version, so I can't do a control find very easily. So within our current code, do we have that folks must register their pet with Joint Animal Services? Might be a good opportunity to do that.
I don't believe we have that in our code specifically, and I think that comes down to the fact that Joint Animal Services is a separate entity, so we don't necessarily enforce, and this is actually part of the conversation we have with Joint Animal Services as well, is that who enforces whose code. So I think that's why we don't specifically call out that they must be registered with Joint Animal Services, because that is, while they provide the service in the city, they're not a city entity that
Yeah.
it's not our code that
Right.
that we're
Oh,
enforcing.
that's such a technicality, and I wonder if we can get past it, because we partner with Joint Animal Services. All of the municipalities, or including Thurston County, pays into them, right? And so they really are. I mean, they're basically like contracted staff for us, right? And they help us in that way, and they really need every dollar. So yeah, I'd be curious to explore that further. I wouldn't want it to hold up this entire work, but I just think of, it. I think it might be a good addition. I couldn't imagine that they'd be opposed to it.
And Mayor and council members, I will say that these are all conversations that have been had at the staff level, and I'll be the very first to say that I've pushed back on some of that because those are other planning concerns that aren't necessarily completely in the same realm as urban ag. We're trying to address some of the issues that we see with pets, and the only reason we even address the pets in this is because we're looking at that 2 acres or more, 2 acres or less. And as we're trying to distinguish that in particular, that's why we're addressing pets here. But again, it's a little bit of topic bleed for sure, and that's a poor choice of words, I apologize, but there are a number of questions that you're asking that I will say some of my current planners asked me to address in this, and I said, this isn't the ordinance for it. They are thinking about it, they want to address this, and I think with some of the guidance we have tonight, we have some impetus to look at that as well. But I will kind of go back to what Councilmember Drone said, is that we're really focused, this is primarily about urban ag and making sure that property that have land that can produce either agricultural animal products or growing goods of that nature. This is the intent of this ordinance is to make those opportunities more readily available. Like I said at the outset, we're trying to open the door and not have those barriers. In particular, when we say agricultural uses must be secondary, I can't emphasize enough that that can be a really big barrier, especially if you have a vacant lot, a large acreage that would be great for agricultural uses. They can't necessarily pursue that in the city limits now because what's the primary use? Well, it's vacant lot. So this ordinance is trying to address that concern. That's the primary concern. And I will say that even at the Planning Commission level, we really got into some of the weeds, as it were, around beekeeping in particular. And I will also say, mentioning goats and using those for area weed control. That's why we had that discussion around noxious weeds, because a lot of people use goats for that. What is it? The yellow brush that we use goats for. Yeah, Scotch. It's actually it's actually poisonous to most goats, but we use goats to eat it anyway, and they really shouldn't be eating that, is my understanding. So that's part of that discussion, but again, we're trying to focus on the agricultural aspect, not necessarily the pets, but I understand why we're looking at the 6 pets here.
Yeah, thank you. Casey, I think you very respectfully and patiently tried to tell me to caution from scope creep. Yes, and I appreciate your commitment to business. I also maybe might catch you in the hallway and have a personal question for you as to whether or not you pushed back on trying to get people to stop goats from eating poisonous stuff, but I guess that'll be for later. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm feeling good. We'll see what my colleagues say, but I'm feeling good about keeping it at 6, removing the no more than 3 species. I know that you got down like the kind of just the small mammal, just making it more clear what small mammals are. A carve out for foster would be great. And then I was just thinking like, hey, let's help out our good partners at Joint Animal Services, but perhaps for other discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. City Manager Bernie.
No, I was just going to, I appreciate that, Mayor. I think it was covered as a comment on, I was just going to highlight just the notes I took on just maybe some follow-up for land use where the small mammals definition, some definitions around fosters, maybe looking at that, breeding puppy mills, because that question came up, and then this registration question with Jazz comment. I think those are all things that can be followed up with land use later that don't need to hold up your action tonight, as was proposed by Councilmember Madrone.
Thank you. And on that note, can we, revisit Councilmember Councilmember Madrone's recommendation?
Can we add to that list that you're tracking, Jay, that when Representative Parsley left this council, she talked about the need to address code around doggy daycares. So might as well just get that in there too.
I have that as a bullet point, Councilmember.
Yeah, yeah. And so, where I'm hearing us land here is we'll stick with 6, but we'll remove and no more than 3 of any species. And thanks, Casey, for all your extra work on this. It's actually my fault because I saw this in here. I was like, well, Sarah Hawk just talked to us about this. Is there an easy fix here? Ended up being a much more extensive conversation on pets, traditional pets than I intended. But I think we are now ready to vote on the Urban Ag Code amendments and these limited changes that we just discussed here. So with that, I move to approve on first reading, forward to second reading, an ordinance amending OMC chapters 18.04 and 18.06 to update our code on urban agriculture and slight modifications for household pets as recommended by staff and discussed by council.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for that robust discussion on that one. All right. So that concludes our business items for tonight. So we're going to move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is item 8A on your agenda, and it is the consideration of a referral regarding an introduction of a non-discrimination ordinance for protecting diverse family structures. And we have Councilmember Vanderpool as the prime sponsor of this referral.
It's, with it being 8:30 tonight, I'm just going to stick to the facts of what this is, so that anything that's reported out, there's an understanding of what this is, and I think that might be the clearest way of going about it. So some of the text I'm going to be saying is from the staff report, and some of it is from the ordinance, just to make it very clear. This referral proposes that the City Council consider an ordinance to affirm and protect diverse family structures by adding family and relationship structure as a protected category wherever protected groups are articulated within the existing city code. That means adding a category in the city code regarding housing, healthcare, public services, civil rights given to city residents. This also opens conversation for other cities and the counties and state and federal government to add these same types of protections. That's why it's important that local governments do things like this. Moreover, family and relationship structure includes, and not limited to, single parent, multi-generational, blended, chosen, non-monogamous, and polyamory households. Homes that have existed since the concept of homes existed. Just going to say that. Whenever there was a home, one of these existed, but are often not protected as a category. So some may ask, who is this for? Well, this is for anyone who lives with anyone. It could be their mother-in-law, it could be their friends or family if they don't have blood relatives. It could be the single mother or father. It could be a member of the LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Plus community for whom we have a sanctuary city status. So in a lot of ways, this is thinking of our sanctuary city and codifying protections for folks and other folks that are not in that community. This is essentially an expansion of civil liberties in a time when the federal executive acts as if liberties don't matter or exist. This is civil liberty progress. This gives our neighbors, our friends, and our family members legal protections. And that's what it means. It means, as it was said in the comments earlier, this is an expansion of civil liberties. This is not taking away anything. This is allowing more folks to have protections. And I think that that is important, especially right now where we are in the world.
Thank you, Councilmember Vanderpool. Is there any further discussion or comments from the council? Twinsies. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen, followed by Councilmember Green.
When this first came across, I had a lot of questions about it. I'm obviously in favor of it. I'm a signer on this and helped work on the referral. Though I will say I did have a lot of questions about it. You know, what do we mean by diverse family? And what is the full scope of people that could be included or protected under this? And then something that was really important to me and my colleagues, Councilmember Vanderpool and Mayor Payne, who are also on the referral, is to make sure that it had teeth. I really believe, unfortunately, that if someone has it in their heart or their mind to discriminate against folks that have diverse family structures, they're probably going to do it anyway. And so, what is something that we can give those people with diverse family structures if they needed to be able to hold up and challenge, and is there any legal teeth that we can give them, right? And so that is why we're coming across with this ordinance tonight. So I don't unfortunately have any sort of hopes that people are gonna so quickly not discriminate, but it's really about making sure that when it happens, for me anyways, making sure that if and when it happens, that people are able to advocate for themselves and to challenge it. So I just wanted to say that it's not so much of a symbolic thing, right? It's not just like a nice thing that we're saying. Thanks.
Yeah, very important. Councilmember Green.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Payne. Councilmember Vanderpool, thanks for bringing this forward. It's you've mentioned it in the past, and so it was nice to see some detail on this. I'm super supportive of the referral, of the conversation, but I did just want to put out there, it is just something I have questions about. Like, I'm looking forward to the learning process as we go. By my nature, I am skeptical of working from a model that somebody else has written for some other city, for some other, but that's not to say it's automatically not the right one or doesn't have pieces that are right. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I'm definitely supportive of this conversation, but I really don't know, when the final ordinance comes forward. I'm really curious. I have a lot of questions. So thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right. I also am a signer onto this referral, and I think that it's important, specifically for the reasons that Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen just said, that it gives the folks in our community who are having these experiences of discrimination, it gives them some mechanism or ability to be able to fight back against that kind of discrimination that they're facing. I will also mention, you can look into the materials here in the packet of the staff report, but it talks about how there are obviously several different types of family structures, and they're all mentioned here within that will also be protected. But I will say that primarily we don't typically see a whole lot of discrimination in housing based on somebody living with their grandmother, or not to say that it doesn't happen, but it's not so much as a thing as it is for those who are in relationships with more than one partner, for people who are LGBTQ plus, and this is definitely going to give those communities the ability to be able to fight back, specifically because you'll read in the statistics here that approximately 4 to 5% of Americans have at some point in their life or currently are in that kind of relationship. And so even if it's not one that lasts for them, they still at some point while they're in that have the ability to say, hey, this isn't right. And I want to really stress the importance of, just because we as a society haven't caught up or we don't understand something for ourselves doesn't make it inherently negative or evil. And this is something that unfortunately, in the comments we heard earlier, I think is just sort of, there's a fear of the unknown because we haven't been here before. But that just means we have some learning and some growing to do, and that's okay to admit what we don't know and learn more. Councilmember Green, I hear you about, just kind of just copy and paste, and how that could be a concern. And that's what we have our wonderful legal team and staff for, to make sure that what's there is vetted and that they can do a thorough job at making sure that whatever comes before us is something that makes sense for the community. And I want to thank Councilmember Vanderpool for stepping out and bringing this forward. It's a brave thing to do. This is one of those topics where people either scoff or they chuckle a little bit because they think it's funny, or, and it's something that we just have more learning to do. And I think in the meantime, while we do that, people who are experiencing discrimination can't wait for us to learn. Proud to support this and looking forward to seeing what comes before us. And thank you to all the partners who are also working with us to make this happen, specifically Open and some other folks up in Seattle. The names of their organization is escaping me right now, but yes, Open, Organization for Polyamory and Ethical Non-Monogamy, and there's also another organization up in Seattle, and their name is escaping me right now, but I thank them for helping educate us as well. So thank you. All right, so any other comments? I believe there's technically a motion according to the staff report. Yeah. At least as it's written. So Councilmember Vanderpool.
Yeah. So I move to approve a referral to introduce an ordinance for the City Council consideration based on the available model legislation. Am I reading the right one right here? Is that right? With revisions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. With revisions informed by the city attorney reviewing public comment during the legislative process.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. So staff will get to work on that, and we look forward to having a draft version of the ordinance before us in just a few weeks. So that takes us to our council reports, and I'll begin with the mayor's report. Just very briefly, this past weekend, the council had our annual council retreat, where we were really able to spend 2 days together, really just besides digging into the work, but bonding together as a council, and also welcoming our newest council member, Councilmember Barrett. And we had an incredible 2 days on Friday and Saturday discussing several things related to our council operating agreements, our work plan, our shift to priority-based budgeting, which was a really great presentation. We also had a really great presentation by the chair of the Squaxin Island Tribe, Chris Peters, on tribal sovereignty. We had a really great art break from Bobby Williams on the Bridge Music Project, and it was just a really great, productive time well spent over those 2 days, and I got a lot out of it, and I hope everybody else did too. So thank you so much, everybody, for that. And then lastly, I just want to quickly mention today having the opportunity to attend the governor's State of the State address, which was a wonderful opportunity to go and hear the governor's words. Much of the comments that were made today certainly resonated with me as the city's mayor, specifically around addressing our regressive tax structure. And it was really incredible to see the governor up on the dais in the House chamber speaking to that. And I think it's the beginning of a much larger conversation, hopefully, for our state around that particular issue. And we're taking one bite at a time, it seems. And hopefully we can continue to push forward on that. That will give cities a little bit more ability to balance our budget in ways that make more sense and that are palatable for our community members. And then lastly, tomorrow, I will be delivering the State of the Community address as one of several mayors and one of our county commissioners tomorrow at the Thurston Chamber of Commerce event called the State of the Community. And so looking forward to that tomorrow. And I'll start to my right with Councilmember Madrone.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Vanderpool.
Nothing to report, but I wanted to say that I do appreciate y'all supporting me on this piece that we just worked on. I think that the mayor mentioned that it's I don't know if you, I'm not sure what the word you used, but you said that it's not easy to do this. I think in a lot of ways for me, I think that it's important to do legislation like this because I know we've passed that and we're moved up past it, but I think that it's important to do it regardless because there are too many people out there that are just don't feel welcomed in their communities, and I think we should continue going forward as far as we can to help people, particularly because, it struck me because I'm putting this in my report because I just spent 2.5 weeks visiting family in the Midwest, and the world is definitely changing, and unfortunately the wrong direction for a lot of these communities. And you can see it in the built environment. You can see the amount of investment is going in a different direction than us, and people are not. More and more people I talk to that I knew from high school who still live there are like wanting to leave because of the situations that are going on economically, or with ICE, or their identities. So for me, I think that we need to continue to be that guiding principle of good policy, and so I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Questions and comments for Councilmember Vanderpool. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Appreciate your comments, Councilmember Vanderpool, and your leadership on this referral. And actually, we're not past it yet. We just passed that it was okay. And we're going to look at hopefully implementing it by February 10th in time right before Valentine's Day, a personal favorite of mine. So we'll need you to do exactly what you said, continue moving across this policy. So thank you.
Thanks. And I know what you mean by saying you don't think you have to be, that it's not a hard thing to do, but it means something to put your name behind something that people can come after you for. So I just wanted to recognize you for that. That's all. Yeah.
Hey, man, I was born in Baltimore. I can take it.
Yeah. All right. Councilmember Gilman.
I was born in Seattle, and I'm not sure what anyhow, that's all right. I just want to report briefly on the Thurston County Board of Health meeting this afternoon. First, the point in time count is coming up in a couple of weeks, and there is still time to volunteer to help, either in advance to sort out things that will be given away or to help at the event. United Way of Thurston County is a way to register. And in the past, we've had some coordination with council members and city staff of training, and if there's anything like that going, I've missed it so far. But nonetheless, there's an opportunity coming very shortly here. Today, we elected Commissioner Mejia to chair the Board of Health for 2026, and Perla Newton, a community member on the board, to be vice chair for the year. And here's just two things I wanted to highlight. I mentioned earlier that Katie Strozik spoke to us about the opioid plan, response plan. Thurston County's taking this on as a public health challenge and fighting against stigma has had a really specific measurable impact in that we have about the same number of non-fatal overdoses and about the same rate as we had, but we've had a reduction in deaths in fatal overdoses, and that's even relative to the rest of the state of Washington. And I'm confident that it's because of our bold saying this is a public health issue and we want to help you medically to deal with using. We had the syringe services program, the needle exchange, right, in downtown Olympia, had each time somebody asks for a new dose of naloxone to carry, they're asked a little survey to ask whether or not they used the old dose to help somebody recover. And we had 270 reported overdose reversals from community members in the past year. So, and that's not even counting first responders, but that's community members like you or I stepping up when you see somebody who's in overdose. So those are lives saved. The other thing, we have a new medical officer for Thurston County, Dr. Barbara Viona, and she gave us a great first report this time. And the first thing is that it is flu season. The respiratory diseases coming into the emergency room have now reached the level where your doctor's office is going to ask you to mask, and if your doctor is bold enough, they're going to tell you to go get a flu shot. The flu shot works, and this is looking to be a fairly severe flu season. Good news from Great Britain, who had their spike ahead of us. This year's flu vaccine has been very impactful, so that's worth considering. The other thing is there's been news headlines in the last few days in particular about removing requirements for children to be immunized for a variety of things, and specifically about flu. We just had a CDC study released. I guess they snuck it in before they were closed down practically. But at any rate, COVID-19 vaccines as a study, children under 4 years old were 76% less likely to have serious complications from COVID if they were immunized, and kids between 5 and 17-year-olds were 56% less likely to have serious effects from COVID. So that's just to say that it's simply a fact that these immunizations work, and they save lives and they make people get less sick. So I was really glad to hear those things this afternoon. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you, Councilmember Gilman. Great to hear about those overdose reversals. That is a huge deal. I'll never forget actually witnessing a response to that from our police department and fire department once on a ride along, and to see all those hands on deck and to see what that means to save a person that's incredible. So, any other comments or questions for Councilmember Gilman? All right, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, no traditional reports. Although, by happenstance, Councilmember Green and I went to the viewing of a documentary film of 2025 called The Librarians at the Olympia Film Society yesterday. And it was introduced by the state librarian, so that was cool, because I'm always like, oh, there she is. Anyways, and it is basically about the uptick in book banning that's happening in the U.S. and really across the U.S. It concentrates in a few states, but it's really happening across the United States. And particularly it's actually funny that we're talking about it tonight, but particularly to LGBTQ plus material and anything about race. And it sort of has this very broad definition, so it's also just catching all of these other books that are of value in its wake. And so sort of a plug for the documentary, The Librarian, and also our local Timberland Regional Library does such a good job of curating a bunch of different book lists, including banned books. And so I just appreciate, it's the beginning of the year, and just want to encourage you all to think about adding a banned book or two or more to your personal reading lists. I will be reading Lawn Boy, a novel by Jonathan Evison, and then I'm also going to be reading an oldie but a goodie called Blubber by Judy Blume. Judy Blume, very radical lady. Very many banned books, that Judy Blume. Anyways, what an opportunity we have, and what a privilege that, we can go into our library and there's probably something that everyone can get offended by, and that is the type of library that we want. So, oh gosh, I know I had something else, Mayor. Oh yeah, many of us signed up for the State of the Community tomorrow, so I trust you'll represent us well. Pressure.
I was just going to say, how mean of you.
It'll be great. We look forward to it.
Thanks. All right. Any questions or comments for Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen? Councilmember Vanderpool.
Are there any banned books I can read, Charlie? You got some good recommendations?
Yes, and you'll love it. I don't want to get too political on here while I'm doing political things already. But yes, there's a lot of different age ranges, absolutely. So I'll have to send you some. Yeah, there's books. There's one about a penguin that has two daddies. It's very cute. And Tango Makes Three. Yep. Oh, and Tango Makes Three. Mm-hmm. Anyways, there's a lot.
Love and Tango Makes Three. Love that book. All right. Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. I have nothing to report, but another one for Charlie was Marlon Bundo. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I love this. You can keep going with the parent books all night. All right. Councilmember Barrett.
Well, council member, I need a referral too, but I prefer not a children's book. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I have a lot of different things that I've done this last week. Being a new member, I get a lot of opportunities. I attended a briefing at the chamber last week for newly elected officials. There were several of the regional new elected officials that were briefed on chamber activities. On last Wednesday night, the night that Renee Good was gunned down, I was very upset by the events in Minneapolis. And I just got in my car. I told my wife, I said, I just have to go see if there's a protest. And there was kind of an impromptu protest that sprung up on Capitol Way at Trevoli Fountain, and I participated in that and had an opportunity to talk to many members of the community, many young members in particular, and I was pleased to participate in that, and I look forward to having the opportunity to do more of those kinds of protests regarding opposition to ICE activity. And I think it's really important. I wanted to call out our county sheriff. This is really to be supportive of all of our law enforcement, because it's very important that we stand up in the community to conflate that our law enforcement is not ICE. And, you know, our law enforcement operates with standards, and I really support our law enforcement. Thank you, Chief, for all you're doing, and I know that the values of our city are quite different than what we have seen exhibited there. I was invited to participate in the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations meeting last night as a new council member, and so I went and reported on my own activities to them, but took in their meeting, and I would just report that they had received an extensive report on the neighborhood grant program and how effectively that's been utilized in the community and how popular that was, and how they wanted more money, but probably was not the year to ask for more. But I really had a lot of positive feedback, and so for the city, I just the staff, I want to convey that. I also want to have convey some praise for Tim Smith, who has been their liaison. I'm not sure that I've personally met Tim, but they just love Tim, and they really regret that he's going on to greener pastures within the city, and I guess won't be their liaison now, and are looking forward to the next person. Larry Dees, of course, is kind of a minor celebrity in Olympia, and he's going to be stepping down as the chair. They're looking for kind of new leadership, and he's kind of agreed to continue as a co-chair until they can find someone. No one really stepped forward at this meeting, and so they were asking me for suggestions on who should chair their organization. Of course, I'm really green, so I didn't have any, but I don't know if there are council members who think of leadership in that position. And I would just mention that. I'll just finish up, and then we can have some questions. Council member Clark Goldman, I signed up for the point-in-time count. One thing that was really important to me is to just sign up as any citizen would. I just wanted to see how the training worked, how I was assigned. The people I talked to, I don't think were aware that I was a council member. And so I'm really looking forward to participating in this, and I am happy to go out on several count days if there's a need, but I'm signed up, I think, for the 30th, and I'm doing a training on the 20th. Just one final thing. Mayor, I just want to thank you so much at our retreat. You put forth, taking stronger looks at One Olympia and the comprehensive look at compassionate and programs that work for our homeless community. And I just want to be a really good partner in helping you, and thank you for the leadership you're providing in moving that forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right.
Oh, Mayor, there's one other thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. This wasn't in our city, but yesterday a woman died. She was hit by a car in Tumwater in the Safeway parking lot. Someone was going too fast, and it was an older woman. Her husband was out in the car. And it just made me reflect on the work that Councilwoman Green is moving forward, and I thank you for that, Councilwoman Green. This is really important. This was outside of our city, but as you know, that store is used by many people in the city, and it's where I do most of my shopping. It's nearby, and it really made a lot of people in our neighborhood sad. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councilmember Barrett. That's very sad and unfortunate. Questions or comments for Councilmember Barrett? Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Just in case I forget to email you, on your sort of call out for some ideas for who might be willing to step up to lead the Council of Neighborhood Association, I wonder about connecting with Grace Fletcher. I believe Grace is over the Swona neighborhood or the Southwest Olympia neighborhood. Yeah. And I've seen Grace come to council chambers a few times now about different issues, sometimes speaking, sometimes not, and pretty engaged. And we've had a conversation about just, wanting to help re-energize the space and make it more diverse. You know, and that is something for the amount of time that I was on the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. That's what they had said, is that, you know, they wanted to have a diverse group of people, and sometimes didn't really know how to do that. And so I think Grace Fletcher would be a nice person to reach out to.
All right, thank you. Last but not least, City Manager Bernie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items. Last Friday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I did send a note out internally to staff and to the council. I know you see those notes as well, but just publicly, I want to thank OPD for the great work they do day in and day out to keep us safe, to support our community well-being, and what was mentioned up there, and protect our community values, which is work they do alongside all of us. So just thank you, OPD, for your work. Secondarily, there are a bunch of us as well that will be at State of Communities tomorrow, so it's a big staff presence. So we got you, Mayor, tomorrow with a lot of folks there. And then just a couple quick retreat follow-ups. We'll bring your council calendar, your interjurisdictionals, and all that on January 27th for your approval. But Melissa is very busily at work notifying all the interjurisdictionals of who the new reps are. And then you'll be starting to see a bunch of calendar updates coming. They started this week, coming very soon. So we're right on top of everything, getting everything moving post-retreat. So that's my report.
All right, thanks, City Manager Bernie. Any questions or comments for the City Manager? All right, seeing none. And Chief, I'll just go ahead and second that and say thank you for all that you do for you and our department. All right, well, if there are no further comments or discussion with no further business before the Olympia City Council, we're adjourned.